Yeah, I see. It was a nostril flare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. You're getting ready. You're a little bit. Are you excited? Are you a little bit anxious?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
But I mean,
okay. Well, we can ease into it. So you joined the stream a little bit ago. Did you find me through YouTube?
I think I just found you from Twitch suggestions.
Oh, okay.
Like I watched it a year ago, I think, where I was not taking MapleStory very seriously. I was just, and I didn't know anything that was going on. Like I was watching it, had no idea what you were doing at all.
Okay.
And then this summer I started playing again, and then I slowly watched your stream and started playing more and understanding the game actually, or trying to at least.
I see. So you've seen the direction a little bit on where the game goes and if there's a payoff, if you put a lot of time into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because before then I was like just joining every summer for 2 weeks and just getting a character to almost level 200. I could never actually crack the 200 mark, and then just stopping. And now in hindsight, it's pretty funny that I never got to 200 now that I see how easy it is. But yeah,
how easy it is now.
Yeah.
It's about knowing what you're doing. There's like a lot of tools and a lot of systems, right? And if you don't use any of them, your character is way weaker. And if you use them all somewhat efficiently, then your character, with the same level, with the same access to stats, can put out way more damage, and then more content is reasonably within reach at that point. That's kind of what I want to do with these sessions as well, is just to see if there's general areas, topics where you feel like you just don't have any idea like what direction you're supposed to go in. Then we can kind of like zoom in on that, make sure that system or whatever overarching topic, maybe something you've heard people say but you don't actually know what people mean by it, maybe it wasn't explained properly, maybe something that I said even, or one of my commands. So I mean, I guess that takes us into the commands and everything. Did you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah,
see
I've
what's going
been using some of those stuff, like for the Legion, like the list of which classes you should create. I've been trying to do a few of those, and generally stuff like that. I don't know what else. I use your weekly resets and stuff.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's first it's obvious at this point, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very confusing what resets when and stuff. So
yeah. It's always people ask like, when is the weekly reset? I was like, well, there's 3 of them, so which one?
Yeah, I still get confused. And this event as well with the strawberry passes that reset on Wednesday for some reason.
Yeah,
and not
on Thursday. Yeah.
So,
yeah, keeps you keeps you interested, keeps you alive, keeps you on your toes. So you gotta keep going with it. But I don't know. Sometimes things like that have links to weekly boss clears, and then they reset Wednesday to Thursday instead because it makes sense. Or like the first week they won't reset on Wednesday to Thursday, but they on Tuesday to Wednesday, but they will generally reset on Tuesday to Wednesday. So they add like an extra day on in the first week, so that they don't give an extra benefit to people who just logged in a little bit earlier on Wednesday after the maintenance versus the people who can't log in until it is already server Thursday, basically. I don't know, back in the day that event shops would have Sundays where sometimes like there would be one Sunday where there'd be a discount on shop items, so if you didn't buy exactly on that day you would lose a whole lot of value for the entire event. So they've changed a lot of things over the years, and it keeps changing. No event is exactly the same. Be like, oh, there's Hyperburn again, or there's they're doing the Hyperburn now, but now it's 1+4, right, instead of 1+2.
I saw that.
And now the item burning is going to be for existing characters as well, not only for new ones. So they keep just changing it up slightly, and so every single year you have to check in again and read all the guides again, which I guess for content creators is nice. No? But you're just going to be done even faster. They want people to have the levels without feeling like they lose a lot of time on their main characters away from it, right?
Yeah, I get that. It keeps getting crazier.
Yeah, exactly. Well, imagine if you don't play for 5 years and you come back and then the burn is like the level 300 or the level cap is like 400 or something. Right? Like it's
spawn level 300.
Yeah, stuff like that can happen. So you wrote some questions down here. I guess I can read those. What I'm doing wrong, understanding how to get stronger, prioritize the very little time I currently have to play. What else should I be doing? Finishing Hyperburn, item burn. So your burn character is very weak right now?
Yeah, all both my hyper burns I'm struggling to do monster park and stuff on because they're just weak as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
And familiar system drop here. Okay. So how much time is that? I guess that's an important thing to get down first.
Yeah, that's very varying. Like right now, I probably should just not be playing at all for the next 2 months.
So school stuff, or
yeah, I am studying and big exams in January, but I do get on like for an hour a day, kind of, and just do on my main, my arcane dailies, my weeklies. I do monster park on my shade. Yeah, that's all I do so far. And once a week, I try to get all my bosses and stuff on my main.
Yeah, because main is 242. So the main is burning and the shade is burning?
No, main isn't burning. The main I created in the summer, and
gotcha. Okay.
Very, very slowly been progressing on it, you see.
Gotcha.
I'm burning a shade and a Nightwalker.
Okay. And what are the levels for those 3 characters? I guess this one, the main is Dawn Warrior 242, and
yeah, the shade is also 242 right now, I think. Yeah, and the Nightwalker is 218. Yeah, it's kind of annoying me that my shade is gonna pass my main, but I guess I can't do anything about that.
Well, yeah. So when it comes to how strong you are, and you will notice that the hyper burn comparative to your main character is not really that much stronger, probably.
Yeah, it's definitely weaker.
Yeah. Who got the item burn?
The Nightwalker.
The Nightwalker, yeah.
Because I felt like I'd probably play that for longer than the shade.
So the shade will get like a huge boost if you get to 260 and you unlock the 6 job, right? And you use the 6 job skill, the origin skill. But until then, level is just a number. You know, it's just like having a specific piece of equipment. That's why I always get very defensive when people start talking about like best in slot. A lot of times new players will come into Maple and be like, oh, what's the best in slot item for this? And in other games it just works differently. In Maple, if you have an item that's best in slot, you probably can't use getting it earlier doesn't really help because you probably don't have the money to upgrade it properly or with the amount of risk that you need, and you can get backups and that kind of stuff, and you don't have the other pieces that it synergizes with for the set bonus, right? So just a piece by itself, the base stats, you probably saw the next presentation stuff, right? Like the new level 250 pendant coming out and everything. Like that pendant, the base stats is just worse than like a Dominator. Like it's not a great pendant, but if you have the money, the resources to upgrade it, you have nothing else to work on, then it's going to be an insane upgrade compared to anything else you could be doing. So it always is relative to where you are in the game. And the same thing with a level. Like level does say you have access to certain dailies, to certain weeklies, to certain areas, to certain skills once you get up to 260. But if you don't also have the longevity on the character to have done enough dailies and weeklies because the character isn't as old, there will be certain obstacles that you cannot surpass at all. And one of the things is when you're running into with Monster Park that you have trouble killing the monsters is probably because your arcane power is too low.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My main has very high arcane power so far, and all the stuff, and my shade has nothing. Yeah.
And that has to do with everything being more like in balance because of how long a character exists. And in that way, it is kind of like a trap, or it can be confusing as a new player coming into Maple and being like, oh, but I've got a burn and I got a super high level, but then you can't do the things around your level because your character is very weak. But how can you expect the character to be strong if it's 3 days old, right? It's still... It's like a baby in like high level armor, but it's still a baby underneath, right? It's still, you don't have any proficiency with your skills. You haven't had to practice your burst setup and stuff like that. You maybe haven't even read your skills yet because you just were mowing down monsters to level, right? You don't even know how your kit works exactly. Whereas with Dawn Warrior, you actually don't need that. In 5 minutes you can figure out how Dawn Warrior works, but...
That's why I like Dawn so much. I feel like a crayon reader all the time. At first it's so easy on the Dawn Warrior, and now I'm playing Shade and Nightwalker, and there's like actual rotations and like skills I have to press.
Yeah, for Shade, like the order of the skills is kind of important. Yeah, I mean they still like simplified it, and it's I think it's an improvement on the class in terms of accessibility for new players for sure. But yeah, you have to kind of just read the skills and see what they're doing and level them up in the right way and burst rotation in the right order for sure. If you have a limited time to play, I would say Symbol Dailies and Monster Park are very high priorities in terms of value per time. So if you're prioritizing on those, I say you're already on the right track. You checked the dailies command, right? You mentioned that before?
Yeah, I think I've seen that before, yeah.
Because that kind of has like around what level I would say which
that one,
which dailies are useful to do. And then the other one that can kind of help you see, because we have damage range and we have combat power, but neither of those actually tell you this is how strong your character is, sadly. So I have the progression sheet where you can kind of see like around what stages, what stats would you like to work towards, so that you can do the content around your level. And then dailies has what content around your level is that. So these two worked together strongly in terms of what you're looking at. So if you see a character where you're like, oh, I'm 260, that's higher level than my main, sure. But if all of these numbers are all like half of what says here, then your character is functionally not really a 260. Your character is functionally maybe more like a 240 or something, or like a 235 or something, right? Whereas your main character, if it goes slowly, but you do all of the stuff in between, and it says 242, maybe it's actually like on the power level of like a 250 or a 255. It probably still won't go as high as 260 because Origin, right? That's such a huge power spike, especially if you unlock your masteries on top of that. Origin plus your 2 masteries for most classes is anywhere from like adding 40 to 100% of your damage. It's not the same for every class, but it's a lot. And then the 2 new masteries coming in 6 months, so new classes will have a huge amount of immediate power creep that they will get access to. So if you're ever like lost on where to spend your time just from an efficiency standpoint, you can always try to look for these numbers and try to aim towards those numbers if you are lower. And if you're already past it, if you're a lot past it, then maybe you can scale down a bit. Like if your IED is very, very high, maybe you can reroll some potentials, or maybe a link skill, or how you build your Legion grid or something like that, you can actually do without. But anything that works with final damage is very, very important. So that's arcane power early on. And when you're bossing IED, when you're bossing and mobbing is going to be critical rate, and then stacking as much critical damage as you can. And when it comes to your V matrix, your boost nodes also give final damage to those skills specifically that they're boosted for. So those are the ones that are going to be the highest deterministic value of, like, if these are low and they're all low, then you're gonna have to work like 10 times as hard on everything else to make up for it. So those are like the most fundamental ones that you want to have, you want to give attention to. And yeah, you never want to like overfund them, because it's hard to gauge in the beginning. Like, does that mean that I need to put 100 nodes? Does that mean I need to put like 1,000 nodes, right? I would always start low, and if it's not working, then you can always add more. Taking away is always inefficient. Plus, you're going to be taking away from other characters as well for that value. So I always advise, like, start low and then see what impact it has. You know, retry the same boss, retry the same monster, see if it's working out. If it's working, you can stop. And then you can fund another character more. If it's not working, maybe fund it a little bit more, you know? But that's probably, when you talk about like Monster Park damage lacking, that's probably arcane power. So there are extra ways that you can get arcane power. Make sure that you're equipping the title, because the burns, they all get titles, right, that have arcane power on it. So make sure you're equipping that.
I thought there's only one title that's account bound. I thought I was going to put that on my main, no? The one.
No, there's, from burning itself, there's 2. If you check the reward path. So like it's like a 220 and a 235 or so, or one at 250, something like that. I don't know exactly the levels, but they give like star 4, and they give like EXP % and everything like that as well. So they're really strong for the duration. They're time limited in activity, but those are really strong. So that you can get some arcane power there. You can get some arcane power from the passive if you're in a guild. So if there's any guild slots available, just putting them in there temporarily can already get you some arcane power as well. You can put some arcane power in your hyperstats, which is typically not advised, but if it gets you to a point where you get less final damage penalty or more final damage bonus, then it's probably going to give you more damage than anything else but it's not going to be reflected in your damage range or in your combat power. So you just kind of have to know that calculation, which is tricky. But the way you can think about it, like if you have 200% damage and you can add 10% damage, there's always a hidden invisible like base 100% damage. So that would make it go from 300 to 310. So that's like 1/30th. So that's 3.3% final damage is how we would say that. But if you have, if you're 20 arcane power short of going from like doing 50% less damage to only 30% less damage, then your total damage is going from 50 to 70% with those 20 points. That's like gaining 40% damage, right? So that's like 13 times as effective. But you have to know those intervals, so you have to look those up. So if for arcane power, for example, those are on Maple stats. This has like all of the nerd formula shit where you want to double check, like how much EXP do I gain if I'm like right on the monster level? How much money do I lose if I'm like too many levels away from the monsters that I'm killing? How much damage do I gain or lose based on the level difference? And then the other one is arcane power as well. Arcane power is on here because I know the numbers for above it, but not always for below it, because I know it's like 10, 30, 50 above, and that's just 10%, 30%, 50%. That's easy to remember. But yeah, so if you're 70% of the amount, you lose 20% damage. And then if you're 50 to 69%, nice, you lose 30% of your damage. And then if you're under half, you lose 40% of your damage. So if you can just jump from 49% to 51%, you're doing from 60% to 70% of your damage. So that's like gaining 1/6, so like 16% final damage. There's almost nothing else in hyperstats that could possibly even come close to that. So, and on top of that, doing all your symbol dailies, symbol weeklies as much as possible. And with every kind of symbol that you get from the hyperburn, I would always try to even out all of the symbols that you have so far and make them level up evenly, because the dailies and the weeklies all give the same amount for every area. So then eventually they'll all max out at the same time as well. So yeah, if a character is just struggling more than another, maybe you focus on one doing Monster Park a little bit more than another one until the other one can kind of catch up to the arcane power that's required in the area. Because you still have until middle February, but even if, there's pretty much like a month there where you're not going to be able to play as much, if you just have that time, like half an hour to 45 minutes max a day, you can still make very steady progress with some of those things. But yeah, probably not enough to do symbol dailies on every single area on like 3 characters. That's going to be a bit too much. So it's going to be about prioritizing. But, there are the Magnificent Growth Potions. They might help you out as well, right? So if you can get them into like the 240s, into like the mid 240s basically for them, then you'll be able to jump them from there into the 250s very easily. And get those free levels for your Legion, get those free levels to get them towards 260 to make them very strong boss mules that need very little funding, right? Because that extra damage that you'll get at 260 from Origin and everything is going to make it also that you probably don't have to throw as much money on those characters to make them strong. So you can start immediately making money with them with the value from Origin, use that money to fund your main, bring your main to the same level, and then that guy will be able to do it even easier and more bosses because he does have that base level funding. And then in that time, your boss mules, right, until that point, will have gotten more time to get more backups, and then that money can go to them to then bring them to a true level 260 as well.
Yeah.
And that way you find kind of like the path of least resistance, because you need time and you need dailies and you need attempts to be able to even get backups to spend money on, right? The faster you start spending with fewer backups and with less knowledge, the more inefficient it's going to be. So it's spend on what you know for sure, and if you don't know for sure, ask around, or you can experiment a little bit, but only with what you're willing to lose, right?
Yeah.
So that goes a little bit into the general progression, I would say, and where to spend your time on dailies and weeklies for this event specifically, because like Ride or Die is going to be very difficult for a completely new account, right? I don't know if you did any like B difficulty challenge.
Yeah, I've been clearing B20 challenge.
B20, okay, yeah.
But A, I can't do it all, so.
No, yeah, A is probably huge. It's not that big of a jump compared to like if you have a character that on the side you could just throw some money on, but if you don't have that money at all, it's like you can't pull it out of thin air. So
yeah.
Have you been doing like MapleStory and Ursus? Do you have time for that?
Yeah.
For the extra money? Okay, yeah, that's good. Because that's good basic income in the beginning, right? So you can start up the funding, and then once you have the funding going, people drop it, or they just run solo whenever they have time. But it will get you started in the beginning very well, and don't underestimate that amount. I think in all the Ursusing I've done, I've probably made about 400 to 500 billion just from Ursus, but over like 9 years. Yeah. But it does add up to quite a lot of money if you do it consistently.
Yeah, and I've been doing my weekly bosses on my main as well, so it's a little bit of money. Right now I can clear up to Lotus as a Lomian.
Okay.
The normal Lomian.
That's good, that's good. Yeah, and that gives you access to the Absolab stuff and everything, right?
Yeah, I just finished my Absolab gear this week.
Okay, nice. Congrats.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. They're not very upgraded yet, but I have them.
Yeah. Does that give you a better idea on how to prioritize the time, or did you still have questions for specific content on like, is this worth it or not? Or
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I'm just gonna get both my hyperburns up to the same level and try to. I also should put more of my symbols into them. Right now I've been taking all the symbols from the event rewards and putting them onto my main, just because I like my main.
Yeah. Then right now there is good value in finishing off the 260s, so that you can make sure that they can start bringing money for your account. That can then go flow back to your main, right? It's all in. So that's really what an investment is, right? You're taking away from what you would want to do, so that in the future you would get more back, and then you get it like interest on it. That's the idea. And now you have a very good opportunity to to do that with 260s, right? Or with the burns, hopefully up to 260. I see that you have. So I guess we went a little bit into this. The item burning. Is there something else where you feel like they're very weak? I mean, they're always. If you're just looking at their level, they're always going to feel weak, right? Item burning is a very good tool to kind of help them keep up. Because the item burning equips are actually really nice. They're really strong. Yeah. But is there other content other than Monster Park where they felt really weak?
Well, yeah, I haven't. Well, I mean, I tried to clear Czak on my Nightwalker. That was pretty hard. I haven't cleared it yet. I feel like I could clear it if I concentrated a bit more. I just suck. I have no hands.
Czak is also he's a little annoying. The attacks will hit like, you'll die even though you've already dodged it quite a bit, I feel. Yeah.
In general, also my first character that I've been bossing on, other than my main, and I've always bossed him on Dawn Warrior, so I don't really know how to play any other characters properly. And first where I have to actually think about a burst rotation, and it's a bit overwhelming to avoid dying and then pressing all the buttons.
Yeah, making sure you have the right toggles on and everything, right? Like Nightwalker has the one type of bats for mobbing and the other type for bossing. Make sure you have the right ones on there. They'll do like extra damage.
Yeah, I'm learning that slowly, so I think it will be fine. I don't know if I will actually be able to finish the item burn, because I mean, those bosses I haven't cleared on my main yet. So I doubt that my hyper burn will get strong enough to ever clear all of them before the event ends.
Yeah, that could be tricky. That does mean that there might also be a little bit of extra value in working on universal buffing, right? So anything like the event skill, for example, or just Legion and Link skill stuff that you can transfer between all those characters.
Yeah.
I guess we can see where you're at with those. Legion's looking pretty nice. Yeah, I mean, it's on the growth, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have 6 more left of those 0 to 100s, so I guess 600 more levels, and I could.
That's easy 600.
Add quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, that gives you an extra square as well, so that gives you more IED value, critical damage, and boss. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have another mega burner in my storage.
Yeah. Well, you have up to 42 characters levels that count, right? So you have 23 more characters that can count. So if you get all of those just to level 100, then you're basically at 6k.
Yeah.
So that could be something, if you have time for that, to make like one new character maybe every other day or something. Like one character you make it and then you level it a bit. Next day you get it to 100. If you do that consistently, then in like a month and a half you have 6k Legion, even if you don't do anything else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when I started my main, like I was doing more characters, but then I started doing more and more in my main because I started unlocking more content. And I was like, cool, I can boss now. And that's why I kind of...
Even if you get to level 60, that's already 5k Legion, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, 5k is probably fine for you as well. 6k, you know, seen as this barrier because you get the whole grid. But if it's all low-level characters, you can't fill it for shit anyway. So it'll just look really, really empty. So aiming for 5k and just making like a bunch more level 60s could also work. That'll get you, you know, 23 times 60 is 1.2, yeah, that's one. Yeah, basically that's 5k. So that could also be a goal for now. And then you can always go back later and go into 6k once you have more higher level characters, right? Or more characters into 140, so that the pieces also get bigger and it makes more sense to add more slots. That's one more thing that will fund your main and fund the side characters as well. And on top of that, yeah, we can look a little bit at like the priorities of the stats and where you're setting everything to make sure that that's in line with how you can get a lot of damage, so that you can, with the work you've already put in, that you can get more value from the time that you have put in, right?
So 6k is where the whole grid is unlocked, you said?
Yeah. So at 2k you get the first one, and then 3, 4, 5, 6 every 1,000 after starting at 2k you get one extra. It just goes out one extra to all the corners, yeah. And at 6k you get the whole grid, but at that point you could basically fill like ignore defense and critical damage, and then you could maybe just make it to boss damage and maybe put one piece in there, but you know your characters are going to be lower level, so there's probably nothing going to reach boss damage. But being able to make the clump of critical damage 20 and the IED 40 will help a lot for bossing. It's a very solid foundation. And if characters have a lot of IED, then you could technically build a page for critical damage and boss damage instead. But yeah, it might also help you, you know, get a little bit into crit rate for mobbing and into crit damage, and maybe make it to normal damage, right? Like you're doing now, but actually keep that kind of that shape. But yeah, you eventually, like in the beginning, you only have stuff in the middle, and then you slowly start moving towards the outer pages. And then if you keep growing and growing, you'll basically have nothing in the middle left, because the outer pages are just bigger and there's too much space there.
Yeah, so far,
Yeah, and then you start filling those out, and then once those are full, which is like at 8.5k or something, then you go back to the middle and you start adding those again. I see here for your Legion artifact, there's a few red stats here. Do you know what that means?
No.
That means that you're over leveled, so you have more. Yeah, you have more than 10. So there's something. There's something that's adding to it, to these 4, but they're not giving you any stats. So that's a good thing to look into to see which one has boss damage, ignore defense, critical damage, because some of those you can probably just move and get extra free. So there's in your situation, typically it's very nice to go into Meso obtain, drop rate, EXP. Those could be very nice to help fund your whole account, because you have most of the super important ones, unless you need critical rate. But if you're good on critical rate, then you can focus on the other ones a bit more. Okay.
How do I find out which one, or how many?
I think if you hover over the stat, I think it shows you which named the names of the crystals that has it. Yeah.
Percent. Do you know how much percent each level gives, or how is that?
Not off the top of my head, but I can look it up.
Sorry, can you find it somewhere?
So it's the artifact system, and then for artifact we have crystal level references. Here we go. So you can see the numbers.
Okay, boss damage level 3 is 4.5. 4, 6. Yeah.
But typically, if 2 characters, if it's on 2, then it should be maxed. If 2, max it out. So.
Damn.
So if it's on more than 2, and those, but what you have is you have a bunch of level 4s, right? So that's why you tend to max one out to 5. at least like the lower ones. But in the beginning, yeah, once you still have a bunch, you technically get more total levels, but then it becomes harder. Then you're going to get a lot of them to 12, and then you lose some levels because of that, because you want to max it out. Yeah, so the next ones are probably going to be a bunch of them going up to level 5 so that you can more evenly distribute the levels and then basically get some levels for free because you'll be stuck.
Yeah.
Hang on, can I... Kopsan. Thank you. Thanks for the raid, Kopsan. Hope you're doing well, Daddy.
Damn, 124.
We're just doing a coaching session right now. Great timing. Much love, dude. Hoop alles goed met de kleine. So yeah, that's probably why you're overleveled, because you have them in 3 different ones, I'm guessing. So they're probably all at 12, right? So if you were to take them out now, they would go down to 8. So you probably want to keep them. So it's something to think about when you level them up to 5, that you can start taking some out and adding extra stats.
Yeah, I'll look at that later. Then I'll calculate which one's which, and then I'll change them.
Yeah, it's just all about, like, you know, when you have the value already put in. If you're min-maxing within the micro of a system, then you're never min-maxing in the macro, right? If you're like, okay, I want to get the most out of this one character, then you're probably not getting the most out of your account or out of the time that you're spending. It's always taking a step back and seeing, like, okay, does this make sense for the greater picture for my whole account? So we can look into the specifics of the character, but I like to go more fundamental first. We had the event stats as well.
Yeah, that's... I think yesterday after watching a stream I noticed that I probably did it wrong. Instead of putting the normal damage, I should have put everything to arcane power.
Yeah. And the 5 on boss damage I think is also a bit too high. If you go up to 4... up to 4 is really good value. Okay. And that gets you up to 30%, but then past 30%, it's 5% per level, and the levels get more expensive as well. So if for someone who if it's their main, you know, and they don't need any damage when they're mobbing, they're all maxed out on critical rate and everything like that, they might want to go for 40% boss damage. But for more beginner accounts, you probably want to distribute it more evenly among more stats, because it'll just make more sense to get more value out of the individual value of the candles.
I can't change it now, though, can I? So
no, you can't go back, but it's just for now. So I would definitely shift towards Arcane Power, and probably also towards IED, because even if Ignore Defense is already pretty good, early on, you can almost never have too much of it, because like I said, it probably would mean in the beginning, if you have a lot of IED, that there's other stuff that has IED now that then doesn't need it anymore, and then you can get direct damage out of it, so it still values your account.
Yeah, I think
Does
my
that make
main
sense?
IED, yeah. I think my main ID is doing kind of fine, but all my other characters are definitely not that good at it.
No. Yeah. That makes sense. But yeah, exactly. But this is like the common funding that we're looking at, right? So we want to make sure that you're doing it not just to min-max on your main. If the other characters are kind of fine and it would only just speed them up, then you'd still want to min-max for your main, and then it would make sense that you would put that on a much lower priority. But I would probably advise making a lot of like level 3 and level 4s, because that's comparatively very, very cheap of any stat that could decently help you. And then past that, once you're done with that, because the event is pretty long, right? Then you can always go into 4s and into 4s and 5s and maybe even into 6 later, and to min-max with it, but then you have all of those fundamental stats already helping for all of your characters, especially if you're going to also build up Legion and build up new characters, right? They do access the event skill only, I think, at level 100?
Yeah, 100. I think it's 101.
But like Legion will already affect them earlier, so it's good to make sure that that's built up for that reason. And then you have Monster Park and Arcane River. Yeah, that's fine. That's very solid, especially now that Monster Park gives double the EXP from before, so that's very nice.
Yeah, that's great. And Sundays are also.
Yeah, if you're grinding on lower level characters, again, like, because here going past 4 is also pretty expensive, right? The EXP from the Bounty Hunter and Inferno Wolf could also help lower level characters quite a bit with training.
Oh, yeah?
So could consider putting some levels in there. That could probably give you good value as well, just to get that one to like level 3 or 4.
Okay.
And then you can always go back to the other one to max that one out.
Yeah.
Because that EXP is only once per day, right? But the portal EXP is per every character is like their limit on their portals, so you can end up going into quite a lot if you do play for more in a day.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you don't really have time to grind and you're mostly just doing dailies, then the Arcane River one will have a bit more value for you because that's guaranteed content that you're doing, and the other one is optional, right? So that's a little bit based on your your profile of playing. Yeah. So for you, it's probably about equal. But again, like past 4, it gets pretty pricey. So up to there, you might consider leveling for other things. And then Link Skills is connected to Legion, and you've probably seen my my Legion command, right? With the Legion and the Link characters.
It's priority, yeah. That's what I've been doing, kind of.
Yeah, so you'll just get more options and be able to build more presets for your Link skills that make more sense, and then go into the character preset. Have you played around with that a little bit? Probably not yet, right?
With what?
The character presets?
Oh, I mean, no. I've been doing the Link skill presets, but I saw in your stream that you use those. Like, it's a general preset for everything, right? Where you just change all the presets once. Yeah, I haven't used those yet, no.
Yeah, you could set for you, like, especially because you also had a question about drop in Meso gear, I saw, right? So if you don't have drop in Meso gear yet, you just have one set for pretty much everything. But the more you build your Legion, the more you'll want maybe a different Legion setup, right? From mobbing to bossing. And you could already set one up for training versus bossing now, and then you'll also get a different. And for hyperstats, you probably have one as well, I'm guessing.
I haven't actually been ever changing my hyperstats. I just leave it all the time. I don't know how much it costs to change it.
It's 2 mil. I think it's like 10 mil to start a new page, but then it's just 2 mil to switch between it.
Oh, it's always 2 mil. Okay.
Yeah, always 2 mil. Yeah, it doesn't go up. No, that's just with Link skills. If you go past 4 times or past 5 times, then it starts costing you, and then more for every change past that. So sometimes it's also, you can make a Link skill page to optimize on a character, but it doesn't mean that every single time you go on it for every single thing you should always switch, because then it could start costing you money if you need to switch to a character that does really need it. So it's good to also get used to not always having it on, because otherwise you'll feel weak when you don't really need it. If it's just a few monster kills, you could probably do it. And if it's like a low-level boss that you already know you can do, maybe you don't switch. If you know later in the day you'll have to switch more. But once you start making good money, it's even if it costs you like 10 or 15 mil to switch, then you kill a boss that gives you 150 mil. It's like it's just part of the crystal, and then part of one crystal, but then you'll be stronger and do everything faster. So you'll find your own pacing in that on whether it makes sense for you to switch or not.
So, but I mean, hyperstats I should actually be switching all the time, because 2 mil is not that bad.
Yeah, no, that's not too bad. So for hyperstats, I have specifically a video. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah, I think I watched it once a long time ago.
So because that one goes into the priorities for the stats. It's very similar between mobbing and bossing. You just where bossing you have IED and boss damage. Basically for mobbing you have EXP and normal monster damage, and they basically just substitute for each other. And other than that, the priorities are very much the same. But of course, for bossing, you need the IED first to make sure that you can commit all the other ones, so that's higher priority. Whereas for training, EXP comes after. You have to make sure you get your kill speed first, right? You can do your map clear or as good as possible, and then once you have that, then you can go as much EXP as you want. So they are exchanged, but not exactly on the same level of priority. And then the next thing that can happen, you do have a decent amount of honor EXP, is also that you make 2 inner abilities, right? One for mobbing, one for bossing. Have you played around with that a little bit?
On my main, I have 3 presets that are pretty good. I have a Meso obtain 90%, a drop rate 19, and boss damage, which you see there.
Yep.
So I use those for boxes at the end of the boss and grinding.
Yeah. So to give you an idea of like where my presets are, so so I have one that has the Meso obtain like unique line, and then the drop rate on top. So this is mainly because I'm kind of behind in fragments, so I'm okay not getting 5% more Meso obtain, but having 5% more drop rate instead. Plus, then I can also use this whenever I open the box when I kill a boss, because then you tend to switch to the to the box preset when you right before you open the box, before you kill the boss, and then you get more drop rate from the boss, right? And then there's also damage to normal monsters. It's not really necessary with this character, but if I go to a higher level, if you don't have enough arcane power yet, enough sacred power yet, it can help, especially for characters that have small particles that fly around that need to do damage. Then this can be just nice little extra just to make sure that you need less funding for everything else. And then the second setup is like the primary bossing one that makes sense. So it's like the highest unique line. So these are rolled with circulators, with the miracle circulators. And then once you have that, you lock that line in and then look for the best legendary line. And then during events or with special circulators, preferably the black circulators from event shops, you can then finish it off and make sure that it's like the perfect numbers. But that's like a slow process that goes over time. And this one has a third one as well, which is very close to this one, but it could mathematically in some situations be a little bit better. But I don't really use this one right now, so that's kind of where the third one is at. But for now, it's probably good with what you have. But be careful in approaching further than where you are, because it might be tempting to just lock in your legendary line and then try to get something good on unique or epic, on second or third line. But that way, it'll be a very inefficient way of getting something there. It's better just save until you have way more, and then just use circulators to roll over your current legendary line, which seems bad, but it'll be easier to get back with locking that unique line that you get, which will be nice as a combo in your ability. And then you lock that one, and then roll back at 50% off for the legendary line to get it back. Because you have enough honor, you can, it's not really a risk, or it's a very low risk. And then your whole value of your inner ability will go up, because then you can combine it too. You can get Meso and drop while you're training, or you can get boss damage. You have boss damage and damage to debuff and item drop on this one. That's very solid already. But your boss mules might want something nice as well, right? So it's good to have that approach for all of them if you have like a long-term plan for the character, because honor EXP, it's better now from event shops, but you can very easily roll through like 3 million even during a sale and just not get what you needed, and then that kind of limits your options after that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's good to have a plan for that.
Yeah, I think my two lines on this character, my main, are actually best in slot on what the document. So my third line, it should be buff duration plus 38, I think.
Yeah, probably either buff duration or attack, or I don't know if cooldown skip would help you. Those would all give you something. But the third line, I mean, unless you're like very far into the game, you should just assume that your third line is basically going to do nothing. If it does anything at all, then that's a huge plus. But just assume that it's just a dead line, honestly.
Yeah, I probably should be using my honor XP medals from the event on my mules, right? So I can get those to legendary and stuff.
Well, so this Sunday we have the inner ability event. So I would look at it's good to leave them in there until the event itself, and then you can pick some up, and then you can pick up some more if they need more. And then if you hit something nice, you hit what you want, then you can always move on to another character, use them there. As long as you can technically still take honor from your character and turn it back into a medal and then trade it to another character, but it's very slow and very inefficient. There's like a very low limit of like turning like 10,000 or 5,000 into a ticket, and you could do it like once a day or like a few times per week, or it's not useful. So don't double click too many medals. Just do like a little bit until you get what you want, and then you can always move the rest over to another character through storage.
Yeah. Okay.
Is definitely what I advise on that. So I guess further into item and drop rate, have you started at all getting drop rate and Meso obtain, that kind of stuff on your main or on any character?
Nothing at all. Okay. Just focusing on damage.
Yeah, and that's understandable, of course, in the beginning, especially if you're not applying all of the ways of getting stronger as efficiently. Then you need more damage from your equips. But as you get further and further in the game, you'll start finding that your equips, what seems like the most important part of your damage on your character, actually becomes one of the least important parts. Or to be more exact, some of the equips are extremely important, and some of them are almost completely unimportant.
Right.
If you could wear only 3 equips, what would you wear?
I assume you mean the WSE? Weapon secondary emblem? Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like percentage of how much damage they give, those 3 combined are like 92% or something of all your damage this early in the game, right? Especially with the potential, good flame, if it's item burning. They make everything else combined just look like trash. So the sooner you know that you really want to main the character and you're going to play it for long term, and I would say it's probably normal that this happens around like level 225 or so, where you start doing some of the bosses that are a little bit more challenging. Yeah. That you really know, like, do I like bossing on this character? Do I like mobbing on this character? Because like you said before, that might be like level 140 or something, right? Long time ago. Yeah. But now 200 is free, and classes can change a lot with 5th job. So I think that's a good point to know, like, I'm going to be continuing this character. I'm working on my weapon, secondary, and emblem, trying to get those upgraded. And then if the next step is, at that point, to go for legendaries on accessories and immediately go for Meso and drop, your items will basically be going from epic to legendary, and they will be gaining the utility of drop and or Meso, right, by making the set, but you will never lose any damage. You actually gain a little bit most of the time, because you go from 6% to 6% all stat, or 9% even on like a 2nd or 3rd line. Sometimes if you're lucky, even 12 or 18. And that will still make it feel like you're progressing both in damage and in utility. But if you go in unique or even legendary on accessories first towards damage, and then you settle in how strong you are with that, and then you go into drop or Meso gear, it'll either mentally feel really bad because you're going down in damage, or it'll be financially bad because you'll feel like, well, I already have this damage and it's already cubed and upgraded for damage, so I need to make another set. And then that sets you back even more in terms of the general progress. You'll get there, right? But it'll slow you down. Yeah. So I think it's a good idea, like around 225, especially if it's your very first character, to make a combination drop and Meso set. And then if it's your 2nd or 3rd character, or if it's like a hyper burn, I think for those it's fine to just go straight up for damage and probably keep things like epic or unique, right? And just try to, with like solid cubes and with hard cubes and those kind of things, just try to get, like, if it's epic, try to get 6%. If it's unique, try to get 9, maybe 12% on accessories, because they're a little bit easier to roll. But don't try to go too much over it. Just, you have anything, roll another item that has nothing yet, get something there, keep rolling, and then if you have a lot of cubes, just go with whatever is the worst and slightly upgrade it. But that way you can always make sure that you're taking advantage of the most efficient part of the upgrading, and you leave the inefficient stuff for later. Like, never tier up into a tier of equip that you cannot afford to roll in, right? Because the cubes always get way more expensive in the next tier, and if you can barely afford the tier up, then don't do it, because you won't be able to cash in on the cost of the tier up with the rolls afterwards if you do that too quickly. And that circles back to what I said in the beginning, right? Like, if you were to get a Berserk from a hard Lotus run, that'd be really cool, but what are you going to do with it? Like, you don't have the kind of money to upgrade it, but you'll want to upgrade it, but you don't want it to sit in your inventory. But if you do that now and you don't have drop in Meso gear, you're slowing yourself down even more for accelerating your progression. Because the main, like, drop rate for equips from bosses is extremely low, right? But that's because there's a lot of drop rate percent in the game. And we can get up to a bonus of 500% drop rate. So the game is designed for, if you have plus 500% drop rate, that then the drop rate is like okay-ish. So the longer it takes you to get to that percent, the more weeks you just need to get the same kind of progress as someone else. You can almost think of it as like, if someone has 300% drop rate bonus and you have 100, you have a base invisible 100% drop rate as well. So they have a total of 400, you have a total of 200. Every week when they do a boss and you do a boss, they're basically killing 2 bosses worth of drops, and you're killing 1 worth of drops. So they're basically going at twice your speed. So you'll need to be twice as lucky if you want to keep up with them, which is not realistic, right? So the only way that you can realistically keep progressing at a decent pace is by making sure that your drop rate is there. So actually going for drop rate on like side characters, I would start doing that after you've settled them in damage-wise, that they're doing the bosses that you know they can do, and the drops can be relevant for your account. Only then would I go for drop rate. So for my account, for example, with my 260s that I had, that were my boss meals, I waited until I could definitely do hard Lotus very quickly, and then I went to drop rate, but I waited for an event to do that, so I could do it cheaper, so that they could get black hearts, because that then could fund my other characters with to keep the pitch set completed. But if all they're going to do is get equips for themselves, why would they need those if they can already do the bosses you're doing on there? They're just going to sit there, right? So that's all unnecessary investment in the sense, the character, you want to invest as little into them as possible to make as much money out of them as possible. Unless you want to main it, or you want it to be a side character, right? Then it gets a different purpose, and as soon as you decide that, you probably also want to make drop rate gear. I typically wouldn't make Meso gear or look for that on more than 2 characters, maybe max. And the less you're grinding, like training in maps, and the more you're doing just dailies and bosses, the less valuable Meso Obtain gear gets, because there's nothing to multiply, right? But drop rate gear will always get value. For every single boss you kill, for every single event you're doing, like it'll always speed you up. So for that, I don't know if you've seen that, but I also did a write-up on drop rate. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I have yet to read it. Yep. I've opened it once.
Yeah, there's a lot of info.
Yeah, it's long, yeah.
But it breaks down what I just said, and like what are like the stages of the equip. So like a drop and meso combination set, a pure drop rate set after that, so that you can switch into that when you're killing the box, right? So that helps you get your equips even faster. And then a hybrid set of drop and meso to try to max out both in one set, which is of course a lot more pricey. And you want to make sure that your foundation of damage is good first, because you'll be giving up a lot of percentage stat by making that. Because it's also sometimes on weaker gear, and you don't get set bonuses and lower star force, right? So it takes a lot of damage away. So you make sure you can even afford to do that financially, but also afford damage-wise to do that. And then the end game is making a set that also takes into account if you want to keep on a continuous ring, right? When we have a special skill ring, for example, or you can keep on a spirit pendant, so that you can keep stacking the EXP on it without having to unequip it, that kind of thing. That's like the last stage, but that's a bunch further.
Yeah.
But does that like give you an idea on like drop and meso, like when to go for that, and like the details will be in the drop rate command, so I would say definitely double check that, and you can always ask later if you have any questions specifically. But it'll talk about what you're aiming for and stuff like that.
So I should be I only go for drop gear on my main right now.
Yeah.
And so, but should I be going for the combined, or just drop rate for now on my main for first set?
For the first set, I would always basically aim for combined, because you're gonna get some drop, some meso, and you want to make sure that the earlier you get it, the more money it will make you back. But you want to make sure that you're going to put in the time with your character, so that it will have time to earn it back. So I would do any drop or meso. As soon as you hit something, cool, move on to the next item. Just one item at a time. Start with things that are already legendary or already unique. It'll hurt if they already have a lot of stat on it, but it'll just, short pain, rip off the bandage kind of thing. I don't know if you already, but because the longer you get used to it, the worse it'll feel. So the sooner you start with upgrading, so nothing's nothing's legendary yet. So that'll be fine. But like event rings are great for that, because most of their damage comes from their base stats anyway, so there's not a terrible amount to lose, and they'll also stay relatively strong for a while as drop and meso gear, so they'll stay with you for quite a long time.
So how do I actually get drop gear? Is it just everything except for weapon secondary emblem counts as drop gear? Like it's all.
Oh no! So here I have the should have the list here. So what we go for is 4 rings, 2 pendants, eye, face accessory, and earring. So those are called the accessories. Whenever you see, if you're looking at like cubing, the expected cost and everything, they are one group. All those accessories have the same weight and types of lines on potential. And they're all relatively cheap. They're all like the cheapest group, basically. So they're also, if you're going to be cubing for, if you're going from 6 to 9% stat, from 9 to 12, from 12 to 15, always, accessories always go first, because they're just on average cheaper. You'll need fewer cubes to get the same result. And like CRA has among the worst rates. They have the most junk lines in there and the lowest weight for stat. So those are always the latest to go to those percentages. Because if you have $1 billion, you can spend it on an equip and get an average of like 21% stat, or you could spend it on another equip and get an average of 12. Where would you spend it? Right? It's the same money, your limited resources. Just like if you know that you're going to spend it on cubing. So sometimes maybe it could be the most efficient is cubing an accessory. The second most efficient could be star forcing CRA from 17 to 19, and then the fourth most efficient or something could be getting your pants from 9 to 12 or something, right? So it could be completely at a different order, and it can be mismatched. But typically Star Force, you're not going to have one item to 22 be more efficient than another one to 17 or something. That gap is typically not going to be that wide.
Okay. So I should just be getting my current accessories. I shouldn't be getting new ones.
Yeah, usually for the first set, it's just boss accessory pieces, event rings, like maybe a kind of treasure ring, like that kind of set. Yeah, typically. So you haven't like gone crazy into like unique and legendary on that yet. So that's good. In that sense, you're not going to lose that damage. But that is probably what you want to spend your money on. And I saw you asking chat earlier, there's no cube sale that we know of. There might be a DMT though, so that's like 50% off tiering up cost, which for you is going to be disproportionately a big part of the money that you're planning to spend. And that might be around the end of this year or early next year. Probably called Magical Miracle Time. The way they do it now is that they'll do like one Sunday, there'll just be like a few types of equips, and then on those types of equips only in your entire account, there'll be twice the chance to tier up with the bright and the glowing cubes, essentially. So, you know, if you average that out, and if you need to get 12 items, you know, from epic to legendary, that's usually like 12 bill. If you can do that for only 6, that's quite a nice gain when you have limited income. So for you, it's probably a good idea to save money up for that. And then once you get the legendaries, you know, just glowing cubes to try to roll any meso or drop. You move on to the next item, and then you try to get to the set of 5 lines of meso and 4 lines of drop within the 9 accessories. That's going to be your first set.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, on the cube sale that we just had, I was kind of very lost. Just did some random stuff because I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, yeah, like I said, that's only 25% off though, right? So if you're going to be spending half your money on tiering up and half on rolling, then a 25% off or an MMT is about the same amount of saving for you. But someone, you know, who's going to spend on average like 400 bill to try to reach a certain potential, MMT is garbage for them because that saves them like 300 mil, like that doesn't even register. But if you're going to make a whole set of drop or meso, once it's legendary, you probably only need, you know, now that I said it, it's going to be double, but like anywhere from like 5 to 10 cubes, you should probably hit meso or drop. It's a very low amount of cubes. So proportionally, you're going to be spending way more on the tiering up part. So an MMT for you in your situation will actually be more valuable than a cube sale. But, you know, if you spent a lot of money on a cube sale and you didn't get much out of it, that always will feel bad. But at least you did it at a discount, right?
Yeah. So I should be getting my accessory to legendary, though, for my drop set.
Yeah, you need legendary to hit meso, obtain, or item drop. Otherwise, you can't get those lines on there, yeah.
Okay.
And it has to be one of those accessories.
And
yeah, current gear, it's good for that.
I only use the cash shop, the bright and glowing cubes, for that. I don't use any of those other cubes that I have. Solid cubes, hard cubes and stuff like that.
So you could use, if you have solid and hard, you could use those to try to tier up to unique first. If you have a bunch of them, or from event you can get some. And then once they're unique, then I would use probably mostly bright, glowing or bright from then on to tier them up. Glowing and bright, you know, people have like their own preference. Mathematically, from what we know, they basically have the same rates. But because you don't have to use as many bright, people feel more accustomed to using those. But technically, since they are more expensive per attempt, the standard deviation is actually a little bit wider. So you can get more lucky, but you can also get more unlucky. But they're around the same. Typically, what I feel like mathematically, it's probably safest to just use the cubes you're planning to use anyway after the tier up, so you're not left with a surplus. But if you're going to be tiering up a whole lot of items, you're very rarely going to have surplus. So people tend to just buy a little bit of both and just throw them at an item, you know.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
But yeah, there might be event shops. There's like one shop that has some bright cubes. Maybe the reward shop you can get some cubes, right?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, because the other thing, right, the WSE is more important. So we can look at that a little bit. But you have, for the weapon, you have the burning stuff, right? So you don't have to... Oh, this is the real one.
This is normal. Yeah.
Oh, no, the burning was on the Nightwalker, right? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I got my secondary emblem, the legendary, from the cube sale. And my weapon I didn't, because I didn't have any more cubes.
Yeah.
But I mean, Yeah, I don't know how bad the lines are right now. But I guess damage
it's
is good anyway.
for us that.
So.
Yeah, it's not terrible, but you do want to get it to legendary.
Yeah.
But like I said, we're probably just saving up now to until there's an MMT. You could, yeah. So the secondary definitely has some potential, pun not intended, for greater capacity. Because like a strength line, you can basically ignore that. It's kind of like with invulnerability. If it's your third line, like on the emblem, it's like a 6% all stat on top of the IED 40 and the 9 attack. Then I like that a lot. Like if that luck line was an attack line, the secondary would be great. But since that's a luck line, it's basically just a single line now. And like I said before, if you can afford to get it up to legendary, you should be able to afford to also get at least 2 useful lines on there. Otherwise, just don't go for legendary at all. Except for it's an accessory, because then you're going just for 1 with drop and Meso, right? But if you're trying to capitalize on the damage, you want to make sure you get 2 useful lines. So either like a 12 attack and 30 boss, or 21 attack, or 40 boss and 30 IED maybe. Like any of those 3 types of lines, you want at least 2 of those. So total budgeting wise, I would probably look at getting something better on the emblem. Because right now as well, when you're mobbing, this is basically a dead item, right? Boss damage doesn't do anything, just 9% stat. Whoop-de-doo, 9% luck.
Yeah.
Like this brings almost no damage when you're mobbing. So this might kind of get you into trouble when you're mobbing, because you also only have 1 line of attack on the emblem, right? Which in itself, it's a good item. But if you're looking at the whole of the WSE, you basically just want to add all of your potentials together and look at them as one big whole, because they get very similar lines. Same thing like the accessories. We just throw them into one big bunch, and we look at how much drop and Meso is in there and how much total stat is in there. The individual stats of one individual item is actually pretty inconsequential. We want to look at the whole thing. So the weapon, we do want to, if that's a real weapon, right? Since it is, you want to also get it to legendary eventually, because then if you just have the prime line legendary, that's already 13 attack. So that's almost as much of what you have now in a single line. So even though it has epic potential, and for epic potential this is really good, it's essentially a single line, maybe like 1 line attack, 1 line all stat legendary. So there's still a whole lot of potential for that. But again, we're going to save money and wait for the MMT. Right? And then you can probably see, like, if you're starting to struggle killing monsters, then you probably want to do the weapon and a little bit on the secondary first. Make sure that those are solid. And if those are solid, then you do the accessories. Again, for you, it's not going to be as the same situation, but for other people, if they're already getting damage from their accessories, and then they're going down in damage from the accessories, going for drop and Meso, if you then don't have a solid foundation with your weapon, secondary, and emblem, you might start losing kill speed, right? And it's always quantity first and then quality. You want to make sure that you can kill all the monsters, and if you can, then you stack as much drop and Meso on top of it. Because if you get 1% more drop from monsters, but you kill 10% fewer monsters, then you're not getting more, you're just getting less, right? You want to make sure that it makes sense for your whole account. And it's the same thing with the bosses. In the past, you had to be like, well, you want to have enough damage so you can kill the boss. But then once you can, you want to get as much drop rate as possible so that you can kind of like multiply the value of the boss afterwards. But now it's a lot easier with the reward rooms and with the presets, so you can actually realistically. But in the past, you'd have to like fight the boss and then run into the corner and then 1 by 1 replace all your equipment to hit the boss, the last hit, so you could get the... it was a nightmare. And then the people who were able to kill the boss faster would get way more value because they had way more time. Or if they had dark sight, they could just sit in the corner and swap everything. Or if you had better ping, right? And now it's a lot more calm. You get into the reward room. You right-click all the skills that could kill the box, and then you just swap, and then... You can click your coupon then, right? You do your longest boss first, then you can click a drop coupon, and then do all the other bosses after that within the coupon, get more value from it. It's a much it's a much better situation.
Nicer,
yeah, definitely.
Better quality of life.
yeah, huge quality of life. Yeah.
But, for mobbing, I'm not really mobbing on this character anyway, right? Because
not right now, no. But you want to keep your.
So
you also want to keep your option open that if you do want to end up doing that, especially, but it'll be like after February probably, right? Like February into March or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could also say like, I'm gonna just get the weapon up, maybe leave the secondary for now, focus on the drop in the Meso gear, and then with the money from the drop in the Meso gear that you make back, then once you start mobbing more, maybe then you roll something else on the secondary. You can do that too, yeah.
Yeah, I also definitely don't want to not be able to clear loads anymore.
No, for sure. For sure.
I will be able to clear them because it is a very much struggle run so far.
Yeah. Well, the weapon potential will help probably the most with that from everything I've seen. Yeah.
Now I have 10 glowing cubes left from the sale. I just noticed. Put those into a weapon.
Well, if you just have 10 glowing, there's a good chance that the weapon will just stay epic but have less attack on it, right? So that's always the risk. You want to make sure that you have, and your own internal assessment is going to change as you do more projects and you do more characters. Like, what are you willing to risk? Like, what kind of odds of an upgrade or of a failure are you okay with dealing with? And for some things, it's going to be 0, and for other things, it's going to be like, oh, if I have 10% chance, I'll try it. If it fails, whatever. But it's good for every individual project to kind of have an idea of, is it going to be a good idea or not. So that's why I use the calculators, or I used to use the calculators a lot. Now, not as much anymore, because, you know, with the amount of money I have, I don't have to worry about it as much. But in the beginning, it would always be like, what is the average cost? You know, what is the chance that it'll fail? And do I even want to risk it? And if I don't, then I just don't do it. I just save for more, wait for the next event. Because the way you want to think about it, if there's a Star Force event, if there's a 5, 10, 15, or there's a Shining coming up, right? If there's a Shining, basically all of the money that you made before that event that you were planning to spend on Star Force anyway will become worth more than double if you just spend it on that day instead.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, that's not a good idea because there's 6 months in between these things. So then you're you're sitting on so much money. And if you invested into your character, you would get so much stronger and make even more that it doesn't make sense. But at a certain point, and this is typically, you know, once your CRAs start going past 19 and everything else starts having to go past 17, things start getting really expensive really quickly, and you just want to wait because A, you want to wait for an event and get more value for your money, but B, you need more backups. So you need time, you need weeks to get your backups. And that's why you need drop rate to make sure that there's not still years in between upgrade attempts. So it all comes back to the drop rate. Which gets it back into the other thing that is tied to drop rate, which you also had a question about, was the familiars, right?
Exactly. I have no idea how this works.
You have any idea at all, or just 0?
I mean, I have familiars.
What do you have? Let's start there. What do you have in terms of familiars?
I think one of the I have a screenshot somewhere.
They're all the way on the bottom, or?
Oh wait, I think that's somewhere at the top.
Oh, somewhere at the top. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah. We have 1 dex, 1 total damage, and 2% strength. All right. Destiny slot DPS. Oh yeah, easy, nice. Yeah, 1 badge gives you 2nd slot. Yeah, if you want the 3rd slot, you need 10 total badges. So that's way more. Yeah. Have you seen the familiar command?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
That's another one that we can put on the list, on the homework list, on the read list. This basically has like all of the basic information. It talks about your familiar gauge on how you can make that a little bit more slow. That's connected to the defense of the familiars. So if you look on the familiar on the bottom right of every card, they'll have a certain amount of defense.
Oh.
And the more defense they have, the less they will consume the bar. So you can keep it slightly longer. But as you can tell, the difference is like, what is it, like almost 10 minutes between like the maximum defense and non-existing defense on something that takes more than 2 hours. So it's good to know that, but it's not as impactful as you might think. If your familiars do run out, you want to be able to use the familiar energy. But again, if you're playing less than an hour a day, you're probably going to be totally fine. But if you want to do like long training sessions and stuff, it's good to know that you can buy extra energy from the familiar shop. So 300 each, and they cost this energy, and you get this kind of energy, these coins, from extracting the familiars, which you've probably done already, right?
Yeah.
So it's always good to have like a few energies just on the side in case you accidentally AFK with the familiars on, right? And they actually run out, and then you have to do some bosses, or you had planned to do some bosses, and you want to get drop rate from the familiars. Then maybe you can use the energy for like a emergency kind of thing. So that's a good idea. Locking familiars. Once you start using certain familiars, and there's other ones that you want to be able to extract, lock the important ones. So you don't accidentally extract them. So you can see here a bunch of them have a little lock on them, right?
Okay. So
And these don't. So if you go into the collection and then select the familiar, you do this little lock here, lock it, and then not lock it.
Okay.
If you go to extraction, it will or will not show up based on that.
Okay.
To extraction, you can do select all. That saves a lot of time. For info, you can reveal the potential, right? You already know how that works because you have some revealed potential familiars.
Yeah.
The badges, so you can select up to 8 badges. And the stats for that are here somewhere as well. Oh, here is the attack and the defense that you gain. Again, those stats on the familiars are completely useless because they deal no damage. But the defense is a little bit important, but you can see also that there's a little bit of a range. And there is a level past level 5, but this is only for non-reboot. And there's also legendary, but that's also pretty much exclusively for non-reboot, with one exception is that there is a very, very small chance to get a legendary familiar from Princess No. But to give you an idea, I've been clearing it for years and years on almost a dozen characters every week, and I've never seen one. So, you know, you can you can pray for it, but you definitely don't expect one. And if you see breakthrough on a card, that has to do with that level past level 5 and everything. So don't worry about that in heroic. So the color of the familiars is good to know because it will determine which. It's kind of like potential of an item, right? Like which potential lines you can even see, and they'll be different for every rarity, but some will exist in multiple ones. So it's just important to know what lines you're looking for in every single rarity. And basically for common, you're just looking for IED or small amount of drop rate, maybe. Those are basically the only ones that are useful on common. Everything else, like the ones you have, like 1% damage or like 2 stat or 1% stat or something, that's just compared to like 15% IED is just so much less valuable. And you can get 15% IED. That'll already help you quite a lot with just not needing IED maybe on the emblem. Maybe it'll get you to the IED here that you're at. So then you can kind of see your emblem as basically only having 1 line of attack. So maybe re-rolling the emblem then to 2 lines of attack will give you way more damage mathematically. So this is how getting certain sources from, or certain stats from certain sources that don't have a lot of competition can make it so that the ones that do have competition, like WSE potential, that you can get a lot more value out of that. Or maybe in your Legion grid, instead, you can put all of the IED there into boss damage instead. And you don't even have to spend any money, but you can just get boss damage for free by just moving the pieces around, right? Or redoing the hyperstat, something like that. So it's good to stay aware of your options, like where is the stat all coming from, and where can I gain a little bit. Okay. For blue, it's basically the same, 15% IED or the middle item drop rate. It'll just say increases item drop rate. That's it. So no small amount, no large amount, just increases drop rate. Okay. These are all very rare lines, by the way. Like they are not very common. You probably have to open like at least like 100 to 200 before you see it. But it's potentially on the first one, but it's potentially on the 400th one, right? So it's just good to know what you're looking out for. And then epic is the ones that can... Epic and unique are the ones that can technically exist. I think legendary and unique are the ones that can technically drop from bosses, but it's super, super rare. Like unique Papalatus also exists. Epic cannot drop from anything, but you can get them from booster packs. And that's, I would say, is the only other item that could be worth it to buy in the shop here. So they cost 2,000, and it gives you 3 random cards. But there is an okay chance, maybe like a 20% chance or something, that the third card is an epic card, which compared to how much effort it is to make an epic is good value. And there's, I think, also a tiny chance for that to be unique. But there's a good chance for those cards to be rare cards. And rare cards are ones that you just cannot get in the game from any other source. Like, even the boss that it looks like that they drop from, or that they look like, it will not drop from them in-game. Like, it's just not attainable. And you can only get them through booster packs. And you will see early on that there are some sets that look pretty easy, But then there'll be like one monster that's just completely impossible to get, so the whole set is basically off limits. So this one is a good example, right? Like these are all just regular monsters. These are super easy, super low level. And then there's like Dial and Slime. It's like, okay, never mind. Like this is an area boss, and this one is a completely unobtainable. Like that's going to just take forever. Or this set, you know, so many monsters in here, but these are all super easy. You can get all of these, and then, oh wait, Alishar and Timer, never mind. Like those are unobtainable. So don't waste your time with those sets if you ever want to go past, because it just won't happen. And this is taken into account in the bottom as well, because where I have a little bit of a list of like which sets are, I think, good ones to go for and which ones are bad ones to go for. And well, you can already guess it. Like, oh, there's only 2 cards here. Yeah, I've never seen any of these 2 in my entire life. These just don't drop. So I think they can technically, but they're so incredibly rare that this whole set just makes no sense to go for. So in the beginning, the badges are really just there to try to get to 1 for the second set, then to try to get to 10 to go for the 3rd familiar, and then basically just after that to like min-max on the stats to try to get the most damage from this. The most attack you can get is 3%, which is not nothing. You can get up to 2 or 3% damage, I believe, as well. That's all written down further, and you can get up to 15% IED if you have 5 IED once unlocked, but some of those are really, really tricky. So these are all that I got all of these from booster packs. So these are all a lot of those rare ones that that only come from booster packs, or that technically, like I got this one on both my characters now, which is well, I can show you, but it is like obnoxiously huge familiar from a storyline. If you have the effects on.
Coco is Silent Crusade now.
Yeah, Silent Crusade,
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, wait, I didn't save it. Oops. But I got another one of these from a booster pack, and I revealed it on my DA. Yeah, so you see it's, you know, if you have 3 of these and you have your skill visibility on, you can actually just block yourself completely from being able to do anything. But I have, but I got one with boss damage on it. So that brings us to the epic cards. For epic, you really start making epics when you have rares as base cards, and then you upgrade them with other common and rare cards, because these can both drop. But you have a lot of the same card. If you have a lot of different cards, you basically just always you reveal them if you still need those lines that we talked about, and then otherwise you just extract them to get the points for either energy or for booster packs. Once you have a lot of the same card, you hold on to them. So if you're training in the same area, that drops them for a long time, and then you can start making epics. And the main reason to do that is because epic can get the final upgrade in the biggest amount of drop rate, which is drop rate by a large amount, which is 100%. So small amount is 30, I believe. The rare increases drop rate is 50. There's a double line in between, but that's also an epic that's technically 60%. But then there's drop by a large amount, which is 100%. And these are also in the drop rate command here. So you can see here the name, and there is some variance based on epic and unique, and sometimes you just have to summon them and see how much your drop rate goes up by in the stat window. But you can see like this, so the split small is 20, the individual small is 30, the split average is 40, individual average is 50, the split large is 50 or 60, very nice, and then the individual large is 100. So this is like the holy grail of drop rate, because it's, you know, from 50 to 100, that's like 2.5 items worth for free on top of everything. It's just insanely good, right? And item acquisition and Meso obtain are mentioned here as well for the unique lines, but they play by the same rules as the cap from equips, and you're probably already going to get to the cap from equips by themselves. So they can be useful while you're still working on that, but eventually you don't hold on to them. So they're more like, transitional lines. But this is the main one that you're going to be looking for. But there's also a chance that you hit boss damage, which is what I happened to hit for the first time on the DA. And there can be IED up to 20 and 30% for both of those. And there can also be some healing familiars. So these can be very helpful if you're doing bosses like Ferris Hilla or Phase 2 of Hard Will. Anything that has blocked healing, they can be very useful. Maybe Black Mage later, while you're still in the practicing phase. So any kind of those lines you would hold on to. But drop rate large amount is the main thing you're looking for. And then once you have drop rate large amount, then that will accelerate even more the cards that you can get, right? And the drops and everything. And then you basically usually start to go for unique cards. And then you start looking for large amounts of boss damage and IED and more healing FAMs to kind of like round out the ones that you need. You can also get some auto steal, which has to do with a little bit more meso dropping, basically. But it's that's mostly for like large boss. So 30, 35, or 40% boss is what you're looking for that.
Okay. So drop rate influences how many familiars you get. So they drop.
Familiars are also like a monster drop that is affected by drop rate. Yeah.
Okay. And so I can only actually tier up if I grind at the same spot for a lot of time, right? I have to just collect.
Yeah. So here you get the rank up. So that goes into ranking up. So if you want to rank up common to rare is 100% chance. It costs you 50 points, but it's completely useless because rares already drop.
Rare. Yeah,
so you're losing a lot of value in points that could either go into a rare to epic or can go into energy and then help you. So that's always just a really bad idea to do. Rare to epic is 80% chance and costs you 100 points. And then epic to unique costs 150, which is not that bad because even if you do fail, you get 50% back, but it's only 40% chance. And this can just sometimes you just fail like 8 times in a row, and like a 4-hour grinding session with a few hundred cards just ends up with giving you nothing. So it's really important to get that large drop first. And it can also be disheartening because this could also take a long time because there's a lot of variance. But when you do hit it, it just impacts all the other things in your account, or in your character at least, right? The growth speed, that it is just so valuable. More so than whether you hit an extra boss damage line, because that's basically like hitting an extra WSE line, which is really good if you have 9 out of 9 perfect WSE lines. But if you still don't have those done, then maybe investing in those with cubing and stuff might even be more ideal for you if you don't have that large drop yet. And the points per card, you can see here, so common is just 1 point, rare is 2 points, and then, well, you have an idea how hard it is to get epics and uniques, so you would expect epics and uniques to be worth like 100, 200. No, they were 3, 4, or 5.
3
so
points.
yeah, so if you get a bad epic, you're really just fucked because you just, it comes unrevealed, you reveal it, it's probably a shitty line. At that point, if you already have a large drop, you're only making the epic, to make uniques. So you open it for the very small chance of hitting IED and boss. And when it does not hit that, which is like 99.99% of the time, then you just throw more cards into it and you get it up to, you fuse up and you get it up to unique. But there's 2 things you have to do. So one is that you have to use, fill up with the points. So that's the yellow bar on the bottom. If you look at a card. Go into fusion here. So this will have a yellow bar, will fill if you hit the 100 points. Any other cards that you have that you can fuse with will show up here, and you can just click them and click fuse. And once you click them, they'll show up here that they're selected. But the card also has to be level 5 to be able to rank up, max rank, max level, sorry. So by hovering over it, you can see here in the top left corner if it's already level 5. And to level it up, you have to have it in your setup and kill monsters near your level, and that will give it EXP, and that will level it up. I don't know if I have any card that's like... Oh, here. This one is partially leveled up, you see? So you get like the little yellow-green line under the level, and if it's all the way to the right, it'll level up, and then it'll start again from the beginning.
Okay. So...
that's why you want the extra slots, right? Because you want to be able to level a card and get drop rate at the same time, so that's why those extra slots are valuable. Sorry.
Yeah. So, how to actually get good lines? You just don't reveal them until they're a tier at which you want it to be, and then you open them. Or that how that works? Or
well, so there's those lines that I mentioned. If they are, those are the lines that are basically the ones that you're looking for. So you can, so once you have your IED, you have like 2 IEDs, and you have a medium drop like on rare. You don't need to reveal anything anymore on your character, and you can just, work on epics or extract them. Or what you can do, you can also move them to another character that still needs IED and the drop rate, and open them there first if you care about their drop rate and about their performance.
Okay.
That's the thing you can do. And then once you know, like, okay, I have everything from these tiers, I'm making epics. Once they're epic, you reveal them, and you're trying to look for the large drop or boss damage or large IED. If it's not one of those, yeah, you can just throw it into the next rare basically and just continue. It can be a good idea to keep a few epics or to keep a few uniques if you're working on that, because there have been systems in the game before which allow you to reset like a cube the potential of the familiar, which saves you a lot of time and is very valuable, but they are incredibly rare. So you can always hope for those, but never count. Sorry?
Aren't those the mystical cards?
Yes, that was the mystical cards or blue cards, red cards. They've had different names. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I don't know all the complaints on Reddit about that.
Yeah, because you could potentially get up to 120% boss damage from familiars, and some people open like 400 of them and don't even see a single 20% line. So it's a huge amount. Like when everything else is pretty much 22, 3 line, you have a good flame. There's nowhere to go. There's just endless waiting for pitches to drop and for Eternals that are booming to finally go. There's nothing else you can really get progress on, right? You got all your skill rings. You're endlessly waiting for a grindstone to go from Roar 4 to Roar 5 or something. Like this is the only thing you can throw endless time in. But if you just don't hit, getting access to those kind of things will be very valuable for people. So the one, so the suspicious familiar in the shop is really bad. There is a small chance that both of the lines get the same tier, just like with equips, right? That you get like double prime. So it's potentially you can open like a common familiar and have 2 lines of 15% IED. I've seen it before. It's extremely rare. It's more rare probably than hitting a legendary from Princess Snow. But these things can happen, so that will be pretty nice. So talk about leveling up the card. Yeah.
So that means my goal now for familiars are just to get open commons, get ID, and to open the rares and get drop rate, the single line.
Yeah, and small drop rate from rares can also already be nice, because it's basically like getting a free legendary equip for free that stacks with it, right?
Yeah.
So even small amount of drop rate is already a nice start, because that gives you more cards, gives you more rares, gives you more chance to get the get the regular drop rate that gets you up to 50, right? It all snowballs into the same system.
Yeah. So drop rate and ID, and then when I got those from the commons and rares, I just started working on my epics.
Yeah, but only if you are training in an area where they drop and you can get a lot of cards. If you can't get a lot of cards, you'll never have enough to fuse together to even do a rank up, and then it'll probably be more valuable to all go into a pack and then maybe pray that there's an epic in the pack instead. Or it might be more valuable to put it on other characters instead and try to get some IED and some drop rate on there to help them fund themselves and to be cheaper.
Are there areas where they drop more or less, or how? What do you mean by that?
No, it's just affected by how many monsters you kill and by your drop rate. Yeah, that's it. There used to be a whole, the way the system used to work was really wild. There were some monsters, if you killed them and you had not drop rate, they would always drop 4 cards, and they would drop like epic cards right from the monsters. So there was a time when it was released, there was a map, the Junior Boogies. You just have a spawn spot for like 5 Junior Boogies, and you would get like 2,000 epics or so in like half an hour. And then you just mass open them. So that's why I have those Junior Boogies on my account here, with a lot of them with like 30 boss. Like these are like the ones that I kept, but like these are so many with ID and boss. I only did it for like an hour or so, and then I got super bored and I stopped. But then they redid the whole system. They moved a whole bunch of things around, and then it was impossible to do it after that. Even though before the system came out, we told them specifically like this was going to happen, and they said, no, that's okay. We're okay with that. And then, within like 4 hours or so, they were like, no, that's not okay. I was like, okay, well, told you, so yeah. It was probably the worst item release that I've ever, or system release that I've ever been a part of in my life. That's like a whole video on itself, but yeah. Summon Gauge talks about the time. It resets on daily reset, and you can also use familiar reset. Badges. So here are the max stats if you want to double check on how much you can stack certain stats up to. Jump and speed only up to 2, of course, right? Otherwise it would be overpowered. Max HP only up to 10, you don't want to get too crazy. Weapon attack could go up to 3%. These numbers make absolutely no sense. Just accept these and move on. But what you're looking for, is like percentage damage and percentage weapon or magic attack probably, and then maybe a little bit of IED, maybe some crit rate. But again, that's like after. That's when you're min-maxing on specifically which ones you're getting. Familiars are extracted. Yeah, so as long as you just double-click the familiar one time, and then they will light up in the set, then they'll always be lit up. Now, at least. In the beginning, there were also problems with that, where people used cards, then extracted them, and then they wouldn't count anymore, and they'd have to get them again. Some cards being very rare. But now that they'll always... So you don't have to hold on to them and keep them in your inventory. The only reason I hold on to some of them is because they're those rare cards and I just want to hold them, and because I have extra inventory space, again, from when the system came out, so it doesn't really hurt me to hold on to them. But otherwise, once they're registered, you can just get rid of them. And here are the easiest badges to get. So ones that have just monsters, just low-level monsters that you can just train on. Always do this with your character with the most drop rate, even if you're doing it for another character, because you'll just have more chance to get them, and then you can just put them in storage and open them up on the other character.
Yeah. For that, is it? But if they're not in my level range, isn't the drop rate much lower then?
No. So I know that happens for some things, and maybe in other video games that happens. But the only thing that is effective with the level cap is the Meso, because there's a Meso multiplier based on if you're a lot of levels away from the monster, and EXP. But all the other drops just drop like normally. You've probably done this. You've killed like level 20 monsters or something, but you still see spell traces drop, right? But no money. And that's because the money has the minus 100% multiplier, so you just don't see it anymore. It's just 0 mesos. But the spell traces drop just like normal. It probably even drop more, because once you have more drop rate, you actually see more spell traces than you did when you were the level of the monster. So monster cards are the same. They will keep the same drop rate.
Okay.
Or keep full drop rate, I should say. Hopefully it goes up with the when your equip gets better.
Yeah.
So these will help you get to 10. And these are really, really easy, but these are linked to high-level areas. So a lot of times it's not very efficient to try to max 10 sets early on, because you'll just spend a lot of time just for one extra familiar that's probably going to be like a 15% IED common at the best, right? So it's not really smart, because you'll get free badges later anyway, and then then you can always then you'll have access to epics and stuff, and you'll actually have something useful to put in there.
Yeah, I want to ask, should I waste my time or invest my time into getting the 10 badges, or...
Yeah, well, the fact that you use the word waste already indicates that I would not be in favor. Yeah, invest. I wouldn't. Why? Because it would be a waste. Because the efficiency of your time would be extremely low. Yeah, that first one is really nice. Get that first one to get the second familiar, so you can always keep a small amount or medium amount of drop rate equipped while you're also leveling one up in an area. But yeah, for that third slot, that is very, very much reduced. If it was 2 or 3 badges, sure. But if it's 10, it's just no go. Here are the items, right? Already talked about those, what to get. And here's how many familiar points you get. So those are those coins that you get when you extract them. So you see it goes up in a similar... It goes up slightly better from 15 to 30 for Epic. But again, it's like nothing, right? Compared to how much work you have to do to rank these up, it really makes almost no sense. So advice, transfer common and rare cards from working on Legion all to your main or boss and characters. Look for 50% ID, common and rare. Extract the bad ones to the shops. Buy a buffer of 4 to 5 essences. I would do that so you can use them in a pinch. Extra cards can be transferred to other characters before you reveal. Reveal on boss meal for 50% ID and item drop rates. Extra booster packs if you have a lot of points. Transfer epic familiars to your character that you care about if you do get them from a booster pack, right? And try to reveal them there, because maybe a large drop, maybe IED, maybe boss. Don't count on mystical familiar cards, but keep their existence and implementation in the back of your head, so save a few unique familiars. So if you, I guess I will say epic/unique familiars for people who are a little bit earlier in the game. When you're trading in areas where familiars drop for a longer time, you can start, I should say, when you're trading in areas for a longer time where familiars drop, because dropping the familiars don't do that for a long time, you can start using them for epic familiars to aim for a large drop rate. And then epic has a small chance of ID and boss damage appearing as well. And then the next step will be making more epics purely for a high reason of getting unique familiars with large healing, high ID, and high boss damage percentage. Someone in chat was asking for the expected costs. Someone mathed it out here. The amount of... Oh boy, what is that? I never liked that. So why do we say for large drop, right? Like the average points that you need. So this is including the 10 points for a common, 15 for a rare, 30 for epic, that kind of thing, is 15,255 points in total on average if you're just making epics to get a large drop. Whereas if you would do uniques, that would be 25,000. So that's quite a bit more inefficient if you're just looking for that line. For the people who want to get 2 lines or 2 lines of IED or something. So boss IED or IED on average at unique, that's 3.1 million. But you see compared to epic, that's 14 million. So that is way more efficient at unique in terms of the outcomes. But you see here, yeah. So if you go for boss damage, if you would make epics, that's way more inefficient than making unique. So you want that large drop first, more cards drop, then you can make uniques, and then you can go into the efficiency of high ID, high drop. There's also attack percent. There's also critical damage. So there's small ones that you can hit that can kind of give you the illusion of progress, but eventually you want that 40 boss because that's just so much more efficient. You see, like, unique 40% boss on average, 254,625 points. Or you could be like I blast on toes in the chat, who made 7 of them and had 3 40% boss. So you can math out how lucky that is, or don't if you don't want depression to set in. Yeah. So there's and then this links back to drop rate, and then this links to just weight nerd shit. Anything with South Parry is all nerd shit. It's useful nerd shit, but it's absolute nerd shit. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It goes into like the weight of the lines, but just because something has 15 lines and another thing has 12 lines doesn't mean you have a higher chance on the thing with 12 lines, because they could be individually weighted again on top of that. So yeah, absolutely horrendous. Okay, and then we get to the last part. I think would be looking directly at your Dawn Warrior and see if there's anything else. But we've gone over like most of it already, so we could probably finish it up pretty quickly. Let me see what time. 1:30. Oh, any other questions on Familiairs, by the way?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you could always double check the command to make sure you've got everything, and then ask in chat whenever. A lot of people have a lot of very happy times thinking fond memories of Familiairs, so they could probably help you on what's going on there and what to do. Okay. So we could check your stat window and see if there is anything funky going on there. You did work on your ID, that's nice. I see a little bit
setup, but
yeah. So for mobbing, right? You were going to make the new hyper setup, right?
Yeah.
And then have that inner, yeah. So there'll be a little bit more in the bottom, and probably on this character not, but on other characters, Arcane Power, right? So if you check the hyperstat video, Arcane Power is mentioned first because it's a final damage multiplier, but if you don't need it, you completely skip it. So I kind of make an order in terms of importance, not in terms of when you should max it, if that makes sense. So this stat is the most important, so look at it. Do you need it? Check where you're training, check progression grid. If you already have the number you need, cool, you can skip it and go to the next one. Once you get into like level 260, 270, 275, you basically anything that's even remotely useful, which is basically this middle bunch here. So crit rate as much as you need to get to 100, right? And then critical damage until boss damage. Basically, you get all of those to 10 just by default, because getting up to 10 will be so cheap. Past 10, it gets way more expensive. So you'll most likely have like 11, 10, 11, 12 or something like that. That'll be like a very common setup. If you look at my character, my setups are like 13, 12, 13, 13. But then for mobbing, it's 4, 12, 0, 12, 0, 12, 0, 5, 15, right? Because I can kill. These are the only important stats basically when you're mobbing. Critical damage, normal damage, enough critical rate to hit 100%, and then as much in EXP as I can, which is maxed out here at 15.
Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of what you end up with. Bossing, so you got more IED here than in a mobbing setup. Good. But there is a little bit of a difference here between 13 and the 9, right? So you want to make sure that that's warranted. You do have an extra invisible IED, what I call functional IED, right? I don't know if you've seen that term flying around.
Yeah, I've read it before. I didn't really know what it means.
So I use that term to describe what is the actual IED that gets calculated when you hit the monster. Because your stat shows you with any attack on any target, this is how much IED it's going to get sent with. But individual skills can have their own extra IED, or bosses can have their own higher PDR, which would impact your IED's efficiency or can have debuffs on them. But the game, your stat window doesn't know that until you hit them and the actual calculation is done, right? So that actual calculation in the moment, that's what I call the functional IED. So when you're looking at here in the progression, this is the functional IED that you're looking at, because that's the important number. So for a lot of things, you're going to have to start kind of let go of your stat window, and you have to know what's going to apply. So you have what's called True Sight, right, which applies a debuff on the boss, and then anyone who hits that boss gets extra IED applied. So that will take your IED higher than what you see in your stat window, and that probably means that your IED in your hyperstats doesn't really have to go over 10, and you can probably lower that back down to 10, which will help your critical damage and your boss damage go just a little bit higher and go into that efficiency a bit more than where the IED is going into, because you see your critical damage, your base critical damage is 35%, I believe, and you add 51, so you're at like 80% critical damage, so you do 80% like final damage on crits bonus, but critical damage is just 1% per one. But if you can get 1% there, that's like getting 4% on the damage if you have like 400%, right? So that's why you will get a bit more efficiency here from 10 to 11 than from 12 to 13 there. So you probably will be fine keeping the IED at 10 or 11, but that's most likely because you have a line of IED on your emblem right now. If you weren't having that one, then this setup was probably better, right? Because now your emblem is carrying some of that weight, so now you can take a little bit more pressure off of the hyperstats. Or if your Legion was 6k and you had the IED completely filled there, and you had two 15% IED familiars, maybe you could even get rid of the emblem IED line and just go for attack there. Or if you have, because I don't think you have the Superior Golic set, right? Superior Golic set is a very important set. That gives you 30 IED and 30% boss damage on the 4 set bonus. That usually makes it so that any kind of IED you have in your WSE, you can probably then completely replace, unless you're a Kana. Kana has like the lowest base IED, I think still, in the game. So they still benefit more from at least one line there. But for everyone else, getting Superior Golics completed and getting 6k Legion and that blocked means nothing anymore on here. If you have one of the two, you probably want one line.
Okay.
That's kind of like the balance between the IED.
Okay.
So if you're not doing Golics or Helix, that's a valuable daily to do as well. With how strong you are, it's probably...
Yeah, I don't know if I can spell a Helix.
Yeah, 6.7 mil, it's probably still pretty tricky, yeah.
I tried it once like a month ago, I couldn't, but I think I probably could, I think, today. I haven't tried it yet because I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk not being good.
You could do hard, right? Hard is a lot easier.
Yeah, hard
it still
I already
gives
do
you
very
points.
easily,
Yeah. So that's another thing, to just practice that every once in a while to see if hard is really a matter of just like pressing 2 buttons and it just melts, then you can probably move up to the next one. Excuse me, I'm doing it on like my Hayato and my Shade now. Again, it's not like a good indicator, but I think my combat power is like more around like 10 mil, around that area. And then it's still not like press 1 button and it dies, but it will get a lot easier if you get yourself to level 260, of course, because then Origin is such a huge burst and you're immune and it's bound, so that's kind of like a free delete button for the boss.
Yeah.
But until then, you will have to play the mechanics. Or if you're not very strong, what you can do is you can go in and burst for as long as you have burst, and then as long as you don't have any of the debuffs, purple debuff stacks over your head, you can just leave the portal on the left side and then just wait outside until your burst comes back, and then go back in and burst again.
Makes sense.
That is a possibility.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit cheating, and it will take some time, right? Because you have 3-minute burst that you're just waiting there, but you can go grab a cup of coffee or go make a sandwich while you're, you can multitask, do something else in real life maybe, until your burst comes back. But that will add quite a bit of value because, way better chance of epic items to drop, and epic belts and earrings are very useful for fodder gear later if you want to go past 17 stars on the Superior. So you'll never really have too many of those. And you'll get way more coins per run, which will get you to the complete set faster. And of course, also a very small chance of the Superior belt and earring. So the base stats on those are, well, not so much the earring, but the belt base stats are really, really high. So those are really useful.
Yeah.
Wank in between bursts. Yeah, if you're so inclined, you can do that. If you're a land speed record holder. So that's one thing that you can do if you notice that you're struggling a little bit. But for you, if you are going to redo that, make sure that you keep that that true sight debuff always on the boss, right? So that it helps you out. And you have what's it called? Weapon aura. Weapon aura also has ID built into it, so when that's active, that'll also help you a little bit. I do see you have hyper body on here. That doesn't give you any benefit as a Dawn Warrior, so you don't have to worry about popping that. Mainly,
I don't know.
yeah, you mainly have that just for the passive stats in the V Matrix, because once you get past like level 210 bosses or something, everything will do percentage HP damage. So if you give yourself more HP, the damage number will also just go up.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference. Yeah, so you pressing it is just like an extra key press that you could just ignore, and you don't have to worry about keeping the buffs active. Anything else in the stat window to look at?
Wait, for the ID, if I have a visible ID of 92 here, and TrueSight gives me another, whatever, 10%, for example, does it mean I have a functional ID of 102% ID?
No, so I also have a video on IED, but IED is like multiplicative with sources. So if you want to do a fast calculation in your head, basically you take the percent of the source that you're adding, and you take that percent of how much you're currently missing to get to 100%. And then you add that number to it. Okay, so if you're at 92, you add a 10%, you add 10% of the missing 8, you add 0.8%, so you go to 92.8. So, yeah, for visualizing, it's like the IED, 100% is basically distance between you and the boss, and the more armor the boss has, the further away it starts. And then every single individual source of IED gives you that percent of the distance that's left between you and the boss that you can get closer to them. So if one source is 100%, you're immediately done. You're always done. And everything else is useless. But we don't typically have many of those. There's very rare. Sometimes some skills have like built-in IED. So for those skills, they can still hit even if you have 0% IED functionally. So those skills will just still hit true damage. But you'll never have true damage unless at least one source is 100%, because there will always be some distance left between you and the boss. But yeah, once you get to Grandis, the bosses actually have... so lower level bosses all have like 100% PDR up to 150. And then Vellum has 200%, which means the ID is double efficient, but also you're going to need more of it to make sure your damage reduction is also going to be doubled without it. And then a lot of bosses have 300%. That's like Lotus, Damien, and everything past that have 300%. Up until Grandis, and then you got like Saren, Kalos, and those all have 380%. So if you don't have the IED on those bosses, 380%, that means if you don't have at least, what is it, like 60? No, it's like 75% or something, you just hit 1 on every line. You just do 0 damage. It's even like theoretically not possible to kill bosses, right?
Yeah.
So you need, that's why this number goes up, but not like an insane amount. Because it is not just how much do you need, but also how much can you get without it lowering your damage again if you take it away somewhere else. Because you could get 99%, right? And you probably will. And party buffs and everything helps and stacks on top of it, right? Other people who have a lot, maybe they bring another debuff on top of your true sight, and maybe your IED goes even higher. And that will happen on the harder bosses. So that's why you don't need to go super far. But you could go to 99% yourself, but then you're doing like 2 lines on your emblem or something. Well, now you're losing 2 lines of attack. Is that really more damage or not, right? It all comes down to the balance of all the damage, of all the sources. The Matrix is looking decently good. You've got a lot of boost nodes. Is that not too much for...
Yeah. I think I only need 1, but I just had empty slots. I just put them in. I don't know.
Yeah, so what happens is you can stack up to 60, right? So early on, if you put in some extra, you can actually get some free levels. But I would usually never level them this far, because if you extract them again for shards, you only get a portion back, and you don't get the full amount back. So you'll actually lose some value, and that value you can put into nodes, into your bossing mules instead. Make them stronger. They will take less money, but make more money for you back, and then that'll get you Meso back in your account.
Okay.
So ideally, right, follow the sets, because the sets are there to make sure that you make optimal use of the slots. But like you said, there are a lot of slots now, so it's not as necessary anymore. But yeah, the inefficiency on the leveling later, once they're maxed out, That's why it's generally not done. What you're doing, like leveling it, it's so far past. There might be systems, and definitely keep an eye on if you're in like the class Discord for Dawn Warriors. I'm not in that one sadly, but if you need for like the 3rd and 4th masteries, if you maybe need something extra there to be able to unlock them, right? Because in order to be able to level up the masteries, your skills have to be at least level 40 without the level up slots in the V Matrix. And for some classes, there are skills added into the masteries that they currently don't level. So if they don't make new boost nodes, they can't unlock the masteries at all. So they will have to make new node zones. So make sure that you're future-proof for that. Yeah. And then once you know that you are, definitely don't invest more into those that you don't need, and try to max out the ones that you do need.
Yeah. Okay.
In general, certain things give you very little from leveling them. And that's basically all of the decent skills with the exception of Decent Holy Symbol. Decent Holy Symbol will give you more EXP and more drop rate as it levels. So I would always try to put that one in a leveled up slot. And then the other ones like Speed Infusion, Combat Orders, Sharp, I always said Sharp Eyes, Speed Infusion, fucking Advanced Blessing, Hyper Body, like all of those. You could basically keep them all at level 1 and all outside of leveled up slots, and you will barely lose anything. Again, especially in the beginning when you're building your account, actually using those extras for shards to level up your skills, and then when your skills are leveled up, using the nodes instead for other characters on your account will give you a lot more value, because you'll need like 18 levels in them to get like 3 all stat or something. And it's like, you're just not even, that's like one flame getting slightly higher stats, right? Like there's so much more valuable in your other characters. And as a general rule of thumb, I would always max out a slot to level 5 before I go to the next slot. Because right now, I think on the top right, that one is level 3, I believe. And you have a level 1 on Holy Symbol. And there's like a level 4 or 3.
I was just doing some random.
Yeah, you're doing some random shit. And I get that. But it's easy to lose track of like where you were. So I would just like start from the top left, max that one, and then just go to the next one. So it's also easy for yourself to know the priority and what order am I leveling them. That's also the same order that you want to put them in leveled up slots, because that'll further level them. But I understand if you get like too many nodes, more than you need, you're just throwing it all in. But then when you want to start scaling up into your account and into bossing mules, then it's something like, oh, I wish I had like 1,000 nodes right now. That could be really, really useful right now, right?
Just opening them for no reason.
Yeah.
So I should not be opening nodes on my main. And just
probably not. Like Weapon Aura will just slowly level over time. Holy Symbol, like if you have EXP nodes, you can maybe use those on like Holy Symbol and on Weapon Aura to try to get those levels up. You'll get nodes from stuff, untradable ones or event ones, and those will eventually level up your boost nodes. But if you figure out that node situation, right, double check that. And extract those extras, then you get a bunch of shards, and with the shards you can also just make more node stones and just open those again, and then just level up what you want to level up and extract the rest, and then go back again, because oh my god, you have 2 more level 20s down here. Jesus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as a Dawn Warrior is crazy work. But yeah, it's better than having them all 25. Okay, it's sooner rather than later on double checking that. Yeah, but I would just double check out which ones you need, and make sure you have the right sets for those. Lock those in, unlock the rest, get rid of them so you don't spend any more on them. You can level up as you get them. Most of the Urda skills, so most of the blue skills, I would level them up as you get them. I wouldn't extract the extras like with the decents. But I also wouldn't craft them, because they kind of gained utility at the higher levels, but not that much. So, yeah, that's what I would do for your V Matrix. Link skills we talked about. Legion, Grid, your priorities are generally good. Just go more outward, right, as your levels go up, if you do work a little bit on making extra characters. Artifact we talked about, it's because you're at level 3s and 5s and 4s that the combinations are a little bit weird, so you're losing some stat. 3rd and 4th mastery only add 1 more skill for Dawn Warrior 5th job. Oh, here, Richard already did the research and put it in chat. Cosmic Shower, Burst, Solar/Lunar Divide. The main 3 he should already have, and the new one is going to be Equinox/. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's the ones you need. Familiars we talked about extensively. Items. Yeah. We talked about all of these. I mean, 7-day Monster Parker is an upgrade here. If you're slowly working on that, you might use Monster Park for EXP first, right, for the hyperburns, and then go back.
Yeah.
That's all fine.
Yeah,
Don't put too much money on the heart, right, because it's a very low level. So even though you go to a higher tier, it doesn't gain more potential. So it's the same cost, but much lower return on stats.
I did that once.
You probably know. Yeah, you realize like 2%. And you're like, okay, this is not worth my money. Yeah, it's a very normal experience. But yeah, just bring the low ones up gradually with like the free cubes and stuff like that, right? Try to bring all the rares up to epic. Try to get all the epics to 6% to 9% maybe. Maybe the accessories a little bit higher priority because they have lower junk lines, but mainly save up for MMT. Try to get maybe nice on the weapon. Maybe hold off on a secondary. Try to get drop in the Meso set completed. Bring the secondary with you as well, and then that'll be able to grow with your account for a long time.
Yeah.
And then work on Helix on superior gear, and then that'll become your true damage gear. So for that you could really go for stat, and then you'll have the money and the income for that because you have your drop in your Meso gear. That's your foundation that helps you get those backups. Are there any backups that you're unsure of on what you should be holding or what you can get rid of?
I don't know of any backups. I have a CRA emblems and stuff. All those drops, but otherwise I don't have backups.
Well, I see you have a lot of equips here in your inventory.
I don't know what to drop. I just leave them there. I don't know what any of these things.
So you're familiar with transfer hammer, right? Like the value of transfer hammering?
Yeah, I use that sometimes. Yeah.
So if an item can get transfer hammered, then it could be useful to have backups for it, and we call that fodder. So whenever I mention fodder, it's just items that you Starforce for the mere purpose of transfer hammering the results over to the next item. So if you already have a reinforced and it's already epic, you're already using it. Is it already 17?
No, I just transferred yesterday from my other build. So it's 16 right 16. Now. Okay, not bad.
Oh, you had a 130 belt. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, so then you probably are just wanting to get more and more reinforced belts. Probably keep so any belt under reinforced now you can get rid of, right? Okay. Because it's no longer useful. But every belt that's the same level, every 140 belt you want to keep because you want that as fodder for the level 150 belt for the superior later on. So you're basically only looking for fodder right now for superior. So anything that's level 140 is going to be potentially useful for you.
I just transfer hammer telling me that I can transfer from the reinforce to a Zacom belt. Would that be
it's possible, but what happens is then with the Zakun belt, you're cornered because that guy's 150 is the same as the superior. So but the base stats are lower. You would gain the set bonus, and it does have flame advantage, so it would be short-term a little upgrade. You could do that, but I think the base stats for reinforced are actually better because belts, for some reason, for Golics are just have way higher stats, right?
Yeah, the base stat from Zakum is much less, but when I transfer it, it says the CP is gonna rise from that if I transfer it.
It's probably because because past 15 you gain a lot of combat power per level, right? So if you go that up to 17, so honestly, like you could do that because it's not like it's a unique 22-star belt where you would waste a lot of potential, but because you could get a flame advantage from this belt and you're not at Helix yet, so you're pretty far away. So honestly, it's not the end of the world because most of the time you'll go for level 140 belts. You'll go for the pink bean anyway because it can drop from normal, which you can do daily, and from chaos at a pretty high rate, versus you'll need to get to Helix first before you can get a lot of reinforced belts and get a lot of fodder there. So honestly, it's not a terrible thing to do, but I would get rid of like all the belts, like the pink bean outfits and stuff like that. Like you can NPC those for a decent amount of money. That's just clogging up your inventory. You really can't do anything with the Zakum helmet and everything. Earrings, you can keep backups if you want to go Starforce it to 17 or past without having to safeguard and save money. Then you can keep backups for that if you want to. Cups, I would usually keep one on the side. If your current one is not have a great flame, that you can always flame it. If it gets better, you could just replace them and then flame the other one. So I think it's a good idea to keep one. I see some medals. Most medals you can just reissue if you want them again later for the look. You're gonna go here. You go to
the pretty ones.
You go here from So you want to double check that they're in here. right? So menu and then medals. And as long as they're in here, that means if you double click them, you could just reissue, boom, and you just get them again.
Okay.
And they'll just be right back in your equip window, clogging up space like they used to, and with no problem. And you could throw them again. You can reissue all of them up to like 100 times, so they'll never really be truly gone.
Okay, great.
Yeah, if you want to hang on. But yeah, like all the reinforced earrings, definitely hold on to those, right? For fodder into superior. And for rings, it'll be kind of treasure rings into superior. So you want to good kind of treasure ring first, and then extra can go into superior once you have left. And for the pendant, it'll be dominators. So those bosses like Princess No and normal Arc, Pink Bean, and Helix or Gollux, any difficulty you can do, those are very important if you have a little bit extra time and if you have some drop rate. Doing those on a daily basis will help you a lot in terms of once you're ready to make the upgrade, then you'll have the ideal, you'll already have the money hopefully, but then you'll also have the backup. So then you only need the event part, right? And then you're done, and then you can make that upgrade. But if you have only the money and no backups, then you're stuck. Or if you have only backups and no money, you're also stuck. So you want to make sure that you have all of those ingredients so that you can upgrade.
Yeah. Should I get all 3 event rings that are available now in the shop?
Typically, per character, I would only get like 2 event rings. Because there's a lot of other rings available, and otherwise you end up falling into the trap of getting like... Everyone's done this on their first character, where they made like 28 legendary accessories, because every time something comes out that's like slightly better, and they want to have drop, and meso, and and damage, and combination, and this one is better, but then you end up wasting so much money for just like a marginal gain of like 3 all-stat and 2 attack or something like that, and it's just not worth the money. So typically I'd only get about like 2 event rings per character, because there's a very good chance that it could help one of your boss mules a lot more, which is like a free... unique, like 12 to 15% stat, and then we could go into like 3 months of no event rings whatsoever, is potentially, and then you're like, oh fuck, I wish I hadn't done that, because now I already don't use that ring anymore on the main, and now this boss mule has like only 2 rings on, and it would help this one way more. That tends to happen. So
I was just thinking maybe like different presets for the future if I need like a drop preset and a damage preset. It won't harm to have.
Yeah, but you're going to go into superior. You're going to go to slime and get a slime ring, and then suddenly it's like, oh, the event ring just already doesn't have any space anymore. Because it's fine to use some of these lower level rings and just to have them be drop in meso gear. That's totally fine.
Okay, and the 17 or what is it? I think legendary scrolls for the event rings, are those worth it? I assume so.
It's a little pricey, but if you don't have the money, then you're basically buying money with event currency, so it could be worth it. But they tend to be priced for interactive, where their value of meso is higher. Whereas for us, if there's either like a tier up event, right, like that might be coming, then we can get that at half price. Suddenly, that scroll becomes half the value.
Useless,
yeah. So not totally useless, but compared to a lot of other things, it might drop in value a lot. So I typically wait like closer to like the end of the event to kind of see, did I buy all the things that I kind of wanted, and how much currency am I going to have left? And you know, if you're going to have like 10,000 left, then you could buy either like 5 million honor that you don't need, or you could buy a legendary scroll that you could immediately put to work. Then yeah, maybe it becomes worth it. But you know, between all the cubes, all the flames, I'd be surprised if you have that much just lying around at that point.
Okay,
I think we checked all the equips. No flames are super trash. No potentials are super trash. You got all your 6%. Get your 17s.
Yeah, I mean my Absol gear is very trash, I think.
Yeah, we only just got it, right? So that's you're still in full swing. Yeah, but this is perfect because you got like event shops have a lot of free flames, so you can just start throwing those on there. And then for cubes, you probably also, you know, if you have leftover money, then maybe you can also spend some on the tiering up during the MMT. But I would try to spend no money on them, just like free event things and free event or bossing cubes, that kind of stuff, just to slowly try to bring them up, and then look for that MMT to maybe send them a bit. And then maybe shining if you want to get them all.
Yeah, my money should primarily be going to my accessories, right? My drop gear, not on my Absol. Yeah,
because if you go Absol first, you might have more damage to do a few more things, and it helps you in the short term.
Yeah, but it doesn't help me. Yeah.
But doesn't help you in the long term. You want to take that investment first and drop a Meso gear, and then the money to upgrade the Abso will just come faster after that.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if you have some spare equips, then you can always function around. Because if you make drop a Meso gear, something is gonna hit like a lot of strength, or a decent amount of strength. If it hits like 21 strength, I would say just roll over it. If it's legendary, even if it's 2-line, because again, 2 lines in accessories is pretty easy. It's pretty cheap. It'll feel weird, but roll over that. If it rolls like 24 or more, then you probably want to keep it for damage and then just work on another one later. But then you have a really strong damage piece for a while, so you can then just use that for damage.
Got it.
Okay, is here more small and specific questions? Did we go through all of these?
Yeah, mostly I think. Yeah, for the Shining Star Force, should I invest in money into getting 17 stars first, or should I save money for the miracle time? Would you say?
The magical miracle time is probably going to be like the week or 2 weeks after that. Yeah, I'd probably save more for miracle time. It'll help you more. But you can math out if you have about a bill per equip. You should be good. Well, yeah, but it's only like a bill per accessory, and it's 9 accessories. So if you have like 9 bill, you should already be more than good, because it'll be cheaper to tier up as well. So if you know that you can have like 9 to 10 bill by that time, and you have more, then you can spend whatever you have more on the Shining Star Force.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now I have 3 bill net worth. So.
Yeah, but you still have a few weeks. Yeah, you said you weren't going to be playing that much, but you still have a few weeks. So there's a chance you have like an extra bill or 2. So if you have a little bit of money, just try to get all the 16s, the free Star Force on all of the Abso. Try to get them all to 16. And if you have more left, you can try one at a time, getting up to 17. But get that free 16 star at least, right?
Yeah. That's important. Sorry.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Otherwise, I think we covered everything.
Yeah, for the cubes, just use the cubes in the tier to get the stat from the tier, and only tier up. So never use like hard cubes on something that's epic if you're just trying to get stats within epic, right? Or never use solid cubes on something that's on something that's unique, because then it might tier up, and then suddenly you have to start using more expensive cubes, right?
Yeah.
With the flames, just always prioritize weapon first, and then all of the items that have flame advantage. So that's going to be like your CRA things, your Abso now, right? And your cup, and always just go by what can gain the most stats. So calculate your flame score, use the command if you need to. Yeah. And then just look at progression at what the flame score is that you're roughly looking for, and just see what is the biggest gain compared to what you have now to what you're going for, and then just always prioritize that for flaming. And just always have one item that has a garbage flame that you're actively working on until it goes higher than some of the other pieces. And then once it does, you ruin whatever is now your lowest flame. You just destroy it until you can have one shitty flame. That's all you're allowed. One very shitty flame. If you have multiple shitty flames, that means that one needs to take like 2 flames, get something that's less shitty than the other one, and now and then always just prioritize like that. Professions is not really useful. Yeah, there's a command for that as well. ! Professions. You can check that one out. I have
zero idea, because I have so much bullshit in my inventory from like this event of like I have no idea what anything does. All the crystals, essences, powders.
Yeah, powders and essences. Everything you don't have, like everything you only have a few of, I would hold on to all of those. There's an item that you can buy that's called a material bag. They can basically all go into that. It's like a brown bag.
Yeah, because my storage is full of just things that I don't know what they do, like gems and stuff.
Yeah. So these I would hold on to, like the spell essences, the crystals, like these guys, mana crystals, twisted times, all of those.
Yeah, I have this all in my storage. Yeah.
The powders already have not as much use. That's more like for transformation potions and something, which some people can use to rank up their stats, but it's not even that necessary. It's like the Dusk Essences and Brilliant Dusk Essences. Those will be very useful later on. But yeah, so general rule of thumb is if you have very little of something, it's probably more valuable than something you can get rid of. So if you have like extra stacks of something, you can probably get rid of it. The only exception I would say is if you have a lot of the mana crystals, you can get a lot of. I would still
like
hold on
I
to
have
those.
2,000 of those in my storage.
Yeah, but like there's a crafting recipe for later for upgrading the experience coupons, but it costs like 1,000 each per craft, so you'll need like hundreds of thousands of them. And twisted times as well, you probably will have a decent amount of them.
Yeah,
hold on to those as well, because they are worth money, but they can also be used in crafting.
Okay.
But
so
the smaller items, yeah, because we're going a little bit over time and I need to take a shit. So like for the details, I can like we can like follow up in chat for like the smaller things, or you could just ask someone in chat like, hey, do I need this item? But I'm okay with going over that with you like a little, maybe in a little bit, or like another day, or just like send it on Discord. I'm totally okay with that, but just like right now, I don't know why, but it's like it's coming up, dude.
No.
So yeah, professions is not that important yet.
Just
what's
okay.
next?
I just keep the stuff and I just do it later. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's it. I think that's everything I wanted to find out today.
Okay, good.
I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome.
All the help. I think I understood much more now from before.
Yeah, some topics like Familairs are just so all over the place. You just kind of have to know exactly what is useful and ignore the rest, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's also confusing everything too.
Yeah. I tried to explain it to my mom a few days ago, and it's just she's like, "Oh, that's such a bad system." I'm like, "I know." It's like I can't make it any better than it is. This is what we have. Yeah. But yeah, if you have follow-up questions, let me know in Discord if it's like too complicated. Otherwise, I'll just help you in chat like I have been.
Yeah, perfect. No, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that you're doing that for this. Oh
yeah, because you won one of the giveaways sessions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we're almost 3 days, and we'll give out the next one. So make sure to stand down and stand by on in the YouTube channel for a few more days for the post.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now I can use all of these tips. Then in February or something, I'll just participate again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, a lot of people have like multiple sessions just to kind of like, get an update, get someone else just to kind of look at stuff and just see if they're still on the right track or where they could maybe steer a little bit. Yeah, cool. I wish you the best of luck, but I'll see you around in chat. So if there's anything, we'll chat.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good one.
Have a good poop.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
See ya.
See ya. Yeah, I really need to go to the bathroom, guys. But thank you for watching. Hopefully it was useful. If you want to win a free session as well, in 3 days, I'll put a giveaway post on YouTube. If you want a session any other way, you can just watch the stream, ask anything in the stream whenever I stream live on Twitch, which is every single day. So there's plenty of time and plenty of things you can ask. If you want a one-on-one scheduled session like this, which takes a lot of time and effort, and it was just specifically just for you and takes all of the systems and the amount of time you have to play and all of that into account, just like this, you can also check !coaching or check the description of the video and see how you can request one of those sessions with me personally. Cool. Other than that, hopefully it was useful. You can also use ! And use my Twitch chat for any of these things that we opened here and these commands. I basically have pages with information about every single topic. If it doesn't exist yet, you can also request it with the channel points that you get just from watching the stream. So we can keep building out the library of knowledge and of information so that everyone can have up-to-date and complete information about the entire game accessible to them. It's accessible to everyone, even when I'm offline, so feel free to use it at your leisure. Leisure management, I don't know. American, British, I guess. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for checking it out. Bye.